is still a long way off. The prospect of more productive informal talks has been revived. Even if that doesn't break the 51-year deadlock, it might decrease the mutual suspicion that's grown during that time and build more trust. Significant differences in how a reunified Ireland would be governed remain, so for now, it's small steps along a very long road. This episode of The Inquiry was written and presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producer was Jill Collins, researcher Maeve Schaffer, editor Tom Bigwood, and technical producer James Bradshaw.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and you're live with us in downtown Winnipeg. Thanks for being here. Snow yesterday, as expected. Today's high in the city of Winnipeg is going to be minus 16, so this is going to be our coldest daytime high in, well, I feel like saying all year long. It's going to be a really brisk one out there. Thanks for being with us for the show. You're watching on YouTube this morning. You might be on 89.3 FM as mentioned, 990 AM or on the app as well. Lots of places to be with us. 3 minutes to 6. We're on air till 8:37. If you need us on the commute, it's 788-3093. Corey Funk's going to pick up the phone. He's directing the show. In our control room this morning, Sophia Peralta-Barone as well as Abby Adiyemi. They are teching. Abby is also covering weather on the air. And there is Darren Marash, who is our YouTube producer if you're watching this show. Josh Crabb is in our news center. Let's go to him right now for our morning headlines.
Good morning, Marcy. The chief of a Northern Cree Nation is calling on Manitoba to cancel the December moose hunt in its traditional territory. Mississippiwistic Cree Nation says the province is ignoring its food needs and treaty rights. This after licenses were issued for most of the moose the province said could be sustainably harvested in the area. One of Winnipeg's former top cops is calling for a return of officers to some city schools. This after a registered sex offender was charged last week with assaulting a child in a school bathroom. And the fate of a 355-year-old document that set the stage for the colonial exploitation of much of Canada will be decided in virtual auction today. What a joint $18 million bid by two wealthy families means for the Hudson's Bay Charter. Your next local CBC News is at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
Well, the cold spot this morning, Tadula, you've been dethroned. We have Gillam at the cold spot. So good morning to our friends up in Gillam. Drifting snow, you're minus 30 currently. Winnipeg here is clear and minus 18. Brandon's clear, minus 23. Thompson's clear and minus 28. We're going to take a walk through the forest to begin the show. We're going to look at those massive carvings in Bois d'Esprit. Maybe you've walked through Winnipeg's area. The city, though, is cracking down on some of the tree carvers that do the work there, so we'll find out how. Also, Canada's joined a new European defense program. We're going to talk more about what that means for our defense and also for the industry. And then at 10 to 7, also in the first hour of our program today, we have our ongoing series about how to keep kids safer, specifically kids in foster care. Stay tuned.
On Cue. Walter Mosley is an award-winning author, best known for his best-selling book series about the character Easy Rawlins. Walter will be here to tell you about his latest book, about telling Black history through Easy Rawlins, and why he thinks his books still resonate 17 years later.
You know, you go through the process of your life, slowly changing from this to that to another thing.
Cue with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Ottawa is facing down a court-ordered deadline to present a new plan to fix the First Nations child welfare system. The Assembly of First Nations rejected the previous Liberal government's offer of more than $47 billion. Prime Minister Mark Carney is vowing to fix the system. But as Olivia Stefanovich reports, his new plan is not the only one in the works.
We will complete the crucial work.
After almost 2 decades of litigation, Prime Minister Mark Carney is pledging his government will be the one to reform the First Nations child welfare system once and for all.
This will help ensure the First Nations children grow up safe, secure, deeply connected to their families, their culture, their language.
But Carney's plan isn't the only one in the works.
This moment in time will go down in history.
CBC News was invited to attend a behind-the-scenes session at the Assembly of First Nations meetings in Ottawa, hosted by chiefs and children's advocates. They are crafting their own proposal to reform on-reserve child and family services. Mary Teegee is the group's representative for British Columbia.
I just wanted to remind everybody how we got here today. It's been a long battle.
First Nations leaders rejected the previous Liberal government's offer of more than $47 billion, concerned the money wasn't guaranteed and the discrimination against their children wouldn't end. The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered the government to submit a new plan by December 22nd. It will be compared to the other proposal put forward by chiefs and advocates that will come up for discussion at the Assembly of First Nations later today. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
The government of Newfoundland and Labrador is being questioned about why it still has not signed on to a federal pharmacare program. The Universal Pharmacare Act was passed by the Trudeau Liberals last year. It covers the cost of things like diabetes medication and contraceptives and could pump millions of dollars into the province's healthcare system. And while Newfoundland and Labrador's new PC government says it is interested, some groups say the province needs to push harder to join the program. Mark Quinn has more from St. John's.
In a statement, Newfoundland and Labrador's government says it will negotiate a pharmacare deal when the federal government is, quote, ready to facilitate those discussions. The Council of Canadians' Yvonne Earle is calling on the province to do more.
If they wait for the federal government, it's not going to happen. The push has to come from the provinces.
Earle heard Prime Minister Mark Carney say he wants to bring more provinces into the program, but she also saw that there was no new money for pharmacare in the last federal budget.
Which leaves it in limbo and doesn't look like the Liberal government is supporting it. And we figure if the provinces that are not yet covered don't push for this and don't make it a priority, it's not going to happen.
When the Pharmacare Act passed in 2024, the Trudeau government did say it would be the first phase of a universal pharmacare program. Jim Dinn, the province's NDP leader, can't understand why Newfoundland and Labrador isn't scrambling to sign on.
A basic thing like this that could help with affordability and also help improve people's health and maybe reduce costs overall in the healthcare system.
Both the NDP and the Council of Canadians hope to eventually see a comprehensive program that covers all medically necessary drugs. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
NATO Secretary General says Ukraine must be in the strongest position possible to keep fighting against Russia. Mark Rutte is heading up a meeting of NATO foreign ministers today in Brussels. He says the lack of progress on a U.S. peace proposal should push allies to provide even more support to Ukraine.
The best way to put pressure on the Russians is by making sure that the Russians understand that the weapon flow into Ukraine will keep on going. That's exactly what's happening today, thanks to the US, thanks to the Europeans. US sending its crucial gear to Ukraine, paid for by Canada and European allies, but also Europe and Canada doing a lot bilaterally. And secondly, making sure that the economic sanctions bite, that they are effective. That's also exactly what is happening.
Yesterday, Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff held talks in Moscow. Russian officials described the talks as constructive, but say no compromise was reached. The hunt for an aircraft that disappeared more than a decade ago is starting up again. The Malaysian government says it will carry out a 55-day search for flight MH370 beginning December 30th. The plane disappeared in 2014 en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing with 239 people on board. It veered off course less than an hour after takeoff and lost contact with air traffic control. The search was the largest in aviation history. An underwater exploration company will search a new 15,000 square kilometer site of the Indian Ocean. The White House is implementing a controversial immigration policy. U.S. President Donald Trump says he is pausing all immigration applications from 19 countries. These changes follow last week's shooting of 2 National Guard members. The CBC's Willie Lowry is following this story from Washington. Willie, what more can you tell us about this new policy?
The list of countries being targeted includes Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, the Republic of the Congo, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and a host of others spread out across the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The administration has paused all immigration applications from these countries. That includes green cards and U.S. citizenship processing, a move that could affect people who have been in the U.S. for years. And it all comes after the arrest of an Afghan national accused of shooting 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. last week.
Willie, Trump appears to be focused on Minnesota's large Somali community. Why?
That's right. So U.S. media reports suggest as many as 100 immigration and customs enforcement officers will soon be in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area looking for undocumented Somali immigrants. The operation comes after President Donald Trump unleashed a 3-minute diatribe against the community during a cabinet meeting yesterday.
Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Let them go back to where they came from.
Minneapolis officials, including Mayor Jacob Fry, say they stand by the community.
To our Somali community, we love you and we stand with you. That commitment is rock solid. Minneapolis is proud to be home to the largest Somali community in the entire country.
An estimated 84,000 people of Somali descent live in the state, most of whom are U.S. citizens.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Trailer Park Boys star Mike Smith will be in court this morning. He's charged with sexual assault. The 53-year-old actor is best known for playing Bubbles on the show filmed in Nova Scotia. Smith was charged in early October in connection with an alleged sexual assault on a woman in December of 2017. Today, he's expected to enter a plea during his appearance at a Dartmouth court. CBC News has learned new exclusive details about the FBI's recent seizure of a rare Mercedes-Benz supercar. Investigators say the vehicle is linked to Canadian fugitive Ryan Wedding. It is estimated to be worth $13 million U.S. Thomas Daigle has more.
Reaching a top speed of 335 kilometers an hour, the 2002 Mercedes CLK GTR Roadster really flies. With 2 seats and no roof, it's effectively a street-legal race car, and only 6 have ever been made.
Certainly authorities seizing cars is nothing new, but I haven't heard of one this valuable. But
it's no wonder dealers of exotic cars like Tim Kwok's sister were taken aback when the FBI recently announced it had seized one of those Mercedes amid the hunt for alleged drug lord Ryan Wedding. FBI Director Kash Patel.
Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar.
Now, CBC News has obtained the purchase agreement for the car, signed last year by Roland Sokolovsky, a Toronto jeweler identified by investigators as one of Wedding's chief money launderers. Sokolovsky and a former Italian Special Forces member are said to have worked together to procure Wedding luxury vehicles, motorcycles, and properties around the world, all to hide the profits from his criminal empire. Jeff Simser is an expert in asset forfeiture.
So this guy runs what the U.S. have described as a $1 billion a year enterprise. And so he wants his toys.
Born in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Wedding is thought to be hiding in Mexico while still leading his cocaine smuggling network. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the middle of the week. It is a Wednesday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is CBC. Minus 18, and guess what? We're not going to change much temperature-wise. This is going to be one of the coldest days we've had all year long. So bundle up and get ready, and maybe head into the forest for a walk. But don't be surprised if you see the city cracking down on some of the tree carving, specifically in Bois d'Esprit. So we're going to have that story this hour. Also, as you've been hearing on the international news and national news, Canada has joined a new European defense program. We'll hear more about what that means for the industry and for our defense overall. And then coming up at 10 to 7 this morning, we have an ongoing conversation about protecting kids out of this disturbing case of a 6-year-old girl who may never walk again after she was allegedly abused by her foster parents. That story's raised some questions about the foster care system and the calls for better measures to protect vulnerable kids. We this hour are going to hear from the Manitoba Foster Parent Association. They've been on our program before, and we're going to dig into what they have to say about training, preparedness, about becoming a foster parent, but also, of course, about their reaction to what happened here, in so much as we know it's under investigation, of course. Right now, let's go to Josh Crabb. He's in our news center this morning with other headlines.
Good morning, Marcy. A former Winnipeg police chief sees merit in the presence of officers in schools. Devon Clunas is calling for their return in some city schools after a registered sex offender was charged with assaulting a child at Darwin School last week. The chief of Mississippiwistic Cree Nation wants the province to cancel the December moose hunt in its traditional territory, while the Northern Nation says Manitoba is ignoring its food needs and treaty rights. And the fate of the Hudson's Bay Charter will be decided in virtual auction today, what it could mean for the historic document. Your next local CBC News is at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Well, Abby Adiemi.
Well, Marcy, you step outside this morning, your face will hurt.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because I feel like you and I have been saying that for a few weeks and we really were wrong. This morning, it's true.
It's true.
This is the morning.
This is the morning. Most of the regions down south, we're looking at wind chill values around -30. And if you go up north, the further north you travel, it really feels dangerous up there, especially around the Gillam area where we have actual temperatures around -30 at this time. And the wind chill in Gillam is around -43 to -44. So that means frostbite in minutes. You need to take care. Winnipeg right now, we're sitting cold at -18 degrees at the Forks. Expect lots of sunshine today, and that will last all day, but some brisk northwest winds means our daytime high will only take us to about -16 later today. And if you're stepping out this morning, you're making a transition from one bus to another, just be prepared. The wind chill feels close to -30, so you need to cover up this morning. Risk of frostbite is a thing. Across the south, we're seeing temperatures between -18 and -23, right from Brandon, Duff, and Gimli down to the Pembina Valley region. Sunshine also on its way, and we'll see wind chill values between -29 to that painful -32 this morning for the southern regions, while up north we're seeing frigid temperatures near -23 with wind chills between -40 and -43 this morning. But Winnipeg, it's clear outside, sunshine on its way. We are at -18 right now.
I couldn't resist, Abby. I ran into the studio just now because you were mentioning Gillam being the cold spot, and everybody was so nice to us there. I just want to show this. You see this feather that they gave us when we were up there a couple of years ago? Yeah, in appreciation from Gillam School. So kids, if you thought I didn't keep it, here it is. It's at my desk. And it was so lovely. We were there on Truth and Reconciliation Day and we walked with the kids. It's so far north. I learned so much on that trip. It was really lovely. So.
And it's cold out there today.
Yes, they all know how to bundle, though. I know that. All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk is in. Speaking of bundling, you ran in this morning?
Yes, and I had a mustache up until yesterday, and I regretted it because my face really hurt on the way in this morning.
Yeah, you need to grow back the facial hair, man.
I'm working on it. Here we go. Nope, not there yet. It has been, it's very quiet so far on the commute, but those roads may very well be slippery and slick as it's always that learning curve this time of year. So heads up if you are hitting the highways or the roads. Give me an update if there's some particularly slippery roads up there. I would love to help folks out. You can give me a call if you're walking, biking, driving. Would love to hear from you. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, you might just be bundled up and walking through a part of Winnipeg a lot of people enjoy, but it's about to change a little. The city of Winnipeg is creating new rules about tree carvings in city forests, now specifically ones in bois d'esprit. For decades, people have been carving faces, designs, and other pictures on the dead tree bark in St. Vital Forest. But the city says there are now too many carvings, and many of them are being done on live trees. Park staff say new carvings now have to be approved. The carvings must be nature or forest related. They cannot include text or symbols because they've also noticed there's some plaques going up on trees and such. The CBC's Bartley Kivas spoke to Dave Donkey, manager of Parks and Open Space for the City of Winnipeg, about this idea.
I understand it's a pretty clear report. We have a grave increase in engravements in Bois des Esprits, and you want to make sure that they're not all willy-nilly extra things here. Now, you were asked in that committee, and it was interesting. You were asked, well, what can you do to stop people from doing carvings you don't want? So what can you actually do?
Well, I think the committee spoke clearly today that we need to put some clear signage up about what can and can't be done, that we just can't have anyone starting to carve a tree out there, and that they need to contact us if they're going to consider that.
You had said that there won't be a carving police. You're not going to be sitting around in the forest jumping out at people if they show up with a chisel or a whittling knife.
Yeah, no, we don't have a carving police, but what we do have is a lot of eyes out there in the community that can let us know what's happening in the community and can report to us what's going on.
As I understand it, it's not that you don't want nature carvings or carvings with forest sort of themes, but text, symbols, other maybe designs that might not be of a overly artistic nature. That's the primary issue here, right?
Yeah, we want the carvings to be tasteful and meet the environment that's out there in Bois d'Esprit. So it needs to be animals, trees, those kinds of carvings are what we look for.
What would you say to people that this is just another example of government's long arm of the law trying to prevent people from doing things, especially who cares if I carve a dead tree?
Well, a park is for the enjoyment of all, and we have to make sure that there's nothing that really detracts from that. So other people there might be a group of people that might not enjoy carvings and a group of people that do enjoy carvings. We need to make sure that what we're offering kind of balances out those two approaches.
And stupid question, is Bois des Esprits just a natural area, or is it formerly a park in the city of Winnipeg?
Well, it's a natural area that is a city park in Winnipeg.
Does it have a separate classification? Is it the same? Is it correct to call it a park?
Well, we would call it a nature park.
Nature park.
Yeah.
And that's a classification you have?
I can't remember right now, Bart. Here, yeah, I don't recall.
I just don't want any of it.
I can get back to you on that if you like.
Okay. And is there
a lot of good questions.
Is there any specific carving that you can think of that really drew the ire of Mr. Penner or anybody else that got this policy going?
Yeah, certainly there was one carving in particular that was into a live tree. The tree amazingly is still living today, but that is certainly a great concern. All the other carvings have been done, into dead trees, which isn't as great of a concern.
That was Dave Domke, manager of Parks and Open Space for the City of Winnipeg, in conversation there with Bartley Kivas from CBC. Meantime, those who visit the forest, often in the Royalwood neighborhood, find the carvings in the deadwood very appealing. CBC's French reporter, Alex Macias, talked to some residents about their thoughts on the new plans.
Edith Boulet.
Avec.
Nadine Derendorf.
You walk here often, and have you seen the carvings when you walk around here?
Yes, I walk at least probably once or twice a month, and we quite enjoy the carvings when we see them. They're very, very well done. It's quite impressive to see them.
Mm-hmm. It adds a little extra to the walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the city wants to regulate a bit around it because some carvings has been seen on live trees instead on dead trees. What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to have more regulation around this?
I don't think it's a bad idea because you want to preserve the forest. It's a living, breathing thing, and so I think the if they can designate the certain trees to be used, I think that's kind of fair for everybody, and then the forest gets used in a very good way.
Mm-hmm. And it's a way to preserve the trees that were here too, and give them a new life without potentially damaging a living tree.
And what do you feel like the carvings add to the forest right now?
It's almost like a little treasure hunt because you come around the corner and all of a sudden you see a carving and it's like, oh, that wasn't there last time we were here, and it's quite interesting to see it. Or she may notice it before me, so it's almost like who can see it first.
Yeah, there's always seems to be something new to spot,
yep.
which is fun.
Yeah.
So that is Alex Marcia speaking to a couple of residents in the Royalwood neighborhood. Again, the city of Winnipeg is creating these new rules around carving trees in Bois d'Esprit. They're particularly worried about carvings on live trees, as you can imagine. You can read more on our cbc.ca/Manitoba website.
This winter, help make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. All it takes is one can of food, $1, or even 1 hour of your time. Your generosity will help those in need and bring us closer together as Manitobans. Join us as we donate a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba December 5th. Visit cbc.ca/kindmb for more.
That's always a really beautiful morning and a beautiful day here at CBC Manitoba. And of course, it runs through the weekend on Nadia Kidwai and her weekend morning show as well. It is coming up this week, so we're just 2 days out now. Friday morning, we hope you can join us, as you heard, to make this season kind. It is, hopefully we're going to make the season warm today because it is really cold. -18, we're going to stay around -16 as we've been saying. We've got a clear sky. Thompson, you're at -28 right now, and there is drifting snow, so just check the highways before you head out today. Well, up next on the show, let's turn our attention to national defense. Canada is joining the Security Action for Europe initiative, or SAFE. The program helps European countries coordinate their weapons purchases. It could also open the door for Canadian companies to land defense contracts in Europe. Ottawa has not yet said how much this will cost. Some experts say it's unclear how much Canada is actually going to benefit as well. To talk about it, Richard Shamuka is back, Senior Fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and contributing author for the Hub.ca. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being back. Can you explain what the EU Military Purchasing Fund actually is?
So it's a bit to unpack. This is born out of EU regulations where the national governments can't spend beyond 3% of their GDP on deficit spending, but they also now have to meet the NATO 2% guidelines and in a decade's time, 5% guidelines on defense spending. So to address that gap, the EU is offering these very low interest loans through SAFE, which would allow them to hit those NATO thresholds. Now, for countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, Turkey that are not, they're closely aligned with the European Union, but they are not member states. They need a side agreement that would allow their companies to actually to participate in doing contracting work in the in the European Union. And that's the agreement that we've just signed, is to allow for our companies to be eligible for contract work in the EU through the Safe Loan program.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this could help us bridge the gap, access some financing, companies access some financing, so then ultimately we can reach some of the targets that are set out for our defense spending. But you said there's a side agreement necessary. Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, these are only for the European Union. We wouldn't actually use safe loans because we don't have a budgetary role through the EU to exceed that. So these are only for European states that want to use Canadian subcontractors on some of their work, which there's some, but it's not really, that's not a very large proportion of countries, because the reality of how the European countries work in defense is that it's a really protectionist market. It's actually one of the big issues with their efficiency with actually getting defense goods, is that a lot of them really only care about ensuring their own companies within their country are getting a work share.
Got it.
And as a result, they want to ensure that their companies are getting most of the money as possible. So
I want to interject here for a moment, just because now I think I understand what we're talking about a little bit more clearly, but I want to make sure. Why do we need SAFE then? Because would they not go for subcontractors for contract, from Canada without SAFE? Like, what's the benefit for Canada here?
They would potentially, if a country like, let's say, Poland wanted to use a Canadian subcontractor in their national budget, they're able to do that, right? But if they use a safe loan because they have to have that little gap in spending on the top, they can't use it for a Canadian firm if they don't have this third-party agreement with Canada.
Okay.
And so that's where safe is. So it's not even their full budget. It's only for the ones that utilize a safe loan. And for Canada's benefit, it's potentially if they want to use a Canadian subcontractor, that's when, and there's a safe loan that's involved, that's when they're eligible.
Ottawa, as I mentioned, has not said how much this would cost. So could joining the fund mean that Canada might have to invest in a major European defense project then?
In practical terms, absolutely. That is the only way this will likely work for most projects, because again, I was saying before with the work share arrangements, where a country like France specifically really cares about making sure their own firms are getting as much business as possible. They're not going to use a Canadian company unless Canada's actually buying, is in that program. They're buying the same goods at the same time and has a pre-existing agreement. So the reality is that this is going to have to come with Canadian buying, literal billions of dollars worth of goods for this to actually start making, monetary sense in Canada.
Last time you were on, we were talking about the Gripen. I'm wondering if this deal could influence Canada's fighter jet choice between the Gripen and the F-35.
In practical terms, it's not going to it doesn't have much relevance because no other European state other than Sweden and Hungary are going to buy the Gripen in Europe. And it's not a new program. Like those are older programs. So there's no real new funding attached to it, and they're not using safe loans, and we're not using safe loans either. So the reality is that it won't have any effect.
All right. Thanks for your time this morning, Richard. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
That's Richard Shamuka, Senior Fellow at the Macdonald Laurier Institute and contributing author for the Hub.ca. We reached him this morning in Vancouver. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Thanks so much for being here with us today. Show is on air till 8:37 AM. Shouldn't be too bad out there. Often on the coldest days, it's clear on the roadways. It's kind of what we have going on out there today. Very cold, and you should be pretty good driving. Now, with the exception of some places up north, I noticed drifting snow around Thompson, so you're going to want to check 511 in the highway situation before you head out. Christely Ramlakan is going to be with us with a business report. If you're a regular listener, you know that comes up after the 6:30 news. And the federal government is reducing housing spending by half over the next 4 years. That's according to a new report by Canada's budget watchdog. So that might sound counterintuitive. We're going to find out what is behind that coming up in our business news this morning. Right now, though, the holiday concert season is well underway, but if you want a show that has nothing to do with the holidays or Christmas here in Winnipeg, there are a few that you can check out. One of them is Mac DeMarco. The BC-born singer-songwriter is playing 2 shows, in fact, at the Burton Cummings Theatre, December 12th and 13th next weekend. We have him this morning with Stars Keep Calling My Name.
Honey, the stars keep on calling my name. I've told you again and again, when I'm down, you're always the first one to know. Let's get to town, I'll take you wherever I go. And I just wanna go. I just wanna go. Honey, this town's really taking its toll. But don't worry, I'm all through with feeling this old. When I'm down, you're always the first on my mind. Let's get out and see what we find. 'Cause I just wanna go. I just wanna go. I just wanna go. I just wanna go.
Just a little ditty from Mac DeMarco, who's playing the Burt December 12th and 13th. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg at 6:30. It's mainly clear and minus 18 downtown, minus 23 in Brandon this hour, drifting snow, and minus 28 in Thompson. Winnipeg's former top cop is calling for a return of officers to some city schools. This after a registered sex offender was charged last week with assaulting a child in a school bathroom. Devon Clunas served as chief of police from 2012 to 2016. He also spent 5 years as a school resource officer. He believes they play a pivotal role in schools. Clunas says a multi-layered approach involving police, educators, and elected officials is needed to ensure the safety of children at Manitoba schools.
And I think we have a real opportunity here to do something that's actually going to be transformational in terms of the SRO program. It doesn't need to look exactly the way it's always looked.
Last week's attack happened at Darwin School in the Louis Riel School Division. It's one of 2 divisions in the city that pulled out of the SRO program in 2021. And you can hear more from Devon Clunas on Information Radio coming up just before 8 o'clock. The chief of a Cree Nation in northern Manitoba is calling on the province to cancel the December moose hunt across its traditional territory. Mississippiwistic Cree Nation, about 400 kilometers north of Winnipeg, says Manitoba is disregarding its food needs and treaty rights after licenses were issued for most of the moose the province estimated could be sustainably harvested in the area. The hunt opened Monday. Mississippiwistic Chief Heidi Cook said in a letter to the Natural Resources Minister, the nation has a firm expectation the province will cancel the hunt.
What we want is better moose management so that we can continue to have moose. Right now, our moose are being hunted to the point where the populations are going to collapse if nothing changes.
The minister in charge, Ian Bushy, says Manitoba is committed to ensuring people can hunt while also protecting moose populations. Bushy says the province will meet with Mississippiwistic to support fair and safe access to hunting areas. For more on this story, you can head to cbc.ca/Manitoba. With Canada at the table offering a new round of financial aid, the NATO foreign ministers are discussing the Ukrainian war effort today in Brussels. And as we hear now from Crystal Gamansing, while the latest peace talks appear to be wavering, it's clear NATO's support for Ukraine is not.
The best way to put pressure on the Russians is by doing 2 things. One is making sure that the Russians understand that the weapon flow into Ukraine will keep on going.
Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, said the second pressure lever on Russia is biting economic sanctions.
Putin is saying
NATO members and Ukrainian allies are also not deterred, including Canada. Anita Anand pledged a new round of $200 million to NATO's prioritized Ukraine requirements list, also known as Pearl.
Second, I am announcing that Canada is committing $35 million in security support through the NATO Comprehensive Assistance Package Fund.
Norway also announced another $500 million for Pearl, saying it has to be well equipped to defend itself and negotiate from a position of strength. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The fate of a foundational piece of Manitoba's and Canada's history will be decided in virtual auction today. The royal charter that formed the Hudson's Bay Company some 355 years ago is going under the hammer. It was signed by King Charles II and gave the company rights to all of Manitoba, as well as large parts of Saskatchewan, Alberta, Nunavut, and Northern Ontario and Quebec. A source tells CBC the only bidders are the wealthy Thompson and Weston families, who announced a joint $18 million bid last month. Cody Grote is an associate professor of Indigenous Studies at Western University. He says the HBC Charter helped lay the foundation for the colonial exploitation of Indigenous peoples.
This document is highly contentious, highly controversial, because it did set the stage, or was based on this idea that Indigenous nations didn't have a legitimate claim to our territories.
Grote says having wealthy families put up the money is a positive in the end because they've agreed to irrevocably donate it to 4 public institutions, including the Manitoba Museum and Archives of Manitoba. A court is expected to approve the sale on December 11th. And finally, Winnipeg is taking the number of carvings in Bois d'Esprit down a notch. Parks officials say there are too many etchings in the St. Vital forest. Prospective carvers now need prior approval. Carvings are not allowed on live trees, and only images of nature or forests are allowed. Parks manager Dave Domke says he hopes carvers will comply with the new rules.
We don't have a carving police, but what we do have is a lot of eyes out there in the community that can let us know what's happening in the community.
Text, symbols, and plaques are also not allowed on trees, but the city won't take down existing carvings that don't comply with the new rules. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Abby, I think it's so cool that it's a really nice night to remember that map is out again for where to see the Christmas lights all over, the holiday light displays, and you can just put the heater on in the car or maybe bundle up a lot with if you're walking through and take a tour because, it's the real cold today.
Yeah, it's the real cold today, frigidly cold, clear stats, and of course we'll get some sunshine today, but that's not really going to warm things up. If we look at conditions up north, it's really brisk. We're looking at wind chills in the minus 40s this morning. Winnipeg right now, minus 18. We will not really move much this morning, even into the afternoon. We might just go to minus 19 later in the day and then drop to about minus 17. I think that's where we'll stay for most of the day. Winnipeg will touch minus 16 and then it cools to about minus 19 again before we get into the overnight. The wind chill feels like minus 29 for folks in the city, so you need to cover up. There's a risk of frostbite on exposed skin. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. More than Winkler, Alton, and Morris down to the U.S. border. We're looking at minus 18 around Morden at this time. Sprague is around minus 18 in Steinbach. We're looking at minus 20 there. Wind chill feels like minus 29. Most of those areas will get to minus 15s, minus 16s later today. That's your daytime high. For the Westman region, Brandon tracking it towards Nipawin. You're starting off around minus 23. It's clear out there. You climb to about minus 16 this afternoon. Sunshine also on its way, but watch out for the nasty wind chill. It feels like minus 32 this morning for folks in the Westman region. Now moving towards the Parkland region, Dauphin and surrounding communities, we're looking at minus 20 there. Sunshine also on its way. You get sun all day. You top out at minus 16. The wind chill feels like minus 32, just similar to Brandon. Gimli, good morning. You're minus 20. Clear there. Sunshine also on its way. You move to minus 15 later. You see the winds coming from the northwest and the wind chill also around minus 32, minus 33 this morning. For folks around the powerfully influenced surrounding community, it's frigid there. Minus 25 at this time. Clear conditions. Wind chill makes it feel like minus 37. Your high will reach minus 18. There's a good chance of snow starting later tonight. Lots of snow on its way. Now for folks in Thompson, minus 28. Clear. We're seeing some drifting snow in that part of the province. Expecting a mix of sun and clouds today. Extreme cold, wind chill around minus 42. This means frostbite in minutes. So you need to take care out there. You'll warm up to minus 21 later. And then further north in Churchill, we're looking at minus 22 at this time. You're getting ice crystals and some blowing snow with those gusty winds. You will stay very cold around with the wind chill values around minus 40 for today. So it's more like a day for the Tukes and Meetings, Mercy, across the province with those very cold temperatures and wind chills dominating the northern part of the province. Winnipeg right now, minus 18, but it feels like minus 29 outside.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I think. Corey Funk.
Thanks for nothing.
Thanks for nothing, Abby. The commute, Corey.
Speaking of thanks for nothing, it so far actually seems like it's pretty smooth commute overall out there. I know there's still parts of construction like at Pembina, northbound Pembina at Bison, where you lose those two left lanes. But other than that, though, if you do see something going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Let me know what you're seeing out there. If there's some slippery spots, would love to hear from you. Cyclists, what's winter cycling been like for you? You give me a call. That number 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Time for business news now. Joining us via Zoom Live, Christely Ramlakan is here with her report. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So the federal government will reduce housing spending by half over the next 4 years. This is a new report that's out from Canada's budget watchdog that's saying this. What's the story behind this?
Well, the parliamentary budget officer says this is because of funding programs set to expire, such as the Housing Accelerator Fund, the Affordable Housing Fund, and Canada Housing Benefit. But government officials say it's wrong to assume programs will not be extended or topped up. Now, the PBO says Canada needs to build 690,000 new housing units by 2035, on top of what is already being built to meet housing needs. And to address that gap, Prime Minister Mark Carney has launched Build Canada Homes to act as a developer with an initial investment of $13 billion. But the PBO has calculated that will only lead to 26,000 new units over 5 years. But, Housing Minister Gregor Robertson says the fiscal watchdog is not taking into consideration how much of an impact the policy will have on private investment in home building.
Build Canada Homes is just launching here. We just opened the portal. We have just the initial capitalization in the budget of $13 billion. We also have $51 billion of housing enabling infrastructure. So combined, a significant investment that's designed to attract private investment in housing. We're looking at crowding in investment from other levels of government and private sector and scaling up the work for affordable housing.
So Robertson says the government is going to leverage investment from across the country.
Up next on the business news this morning, Costco suing U.S. President Donald Trump. Why?
Yeah, so Costco is joining other companies that are not waiting to see whether the Supreme Court strikes down Trump's most sweeping import taxes. They're going to court to demand refunds on the tariffs that they've paid. So earlier this year, 2 U.S. courts ruled that Trump's biggest and boldest import taxes are actually illegal, and the case is now before the Supreme Court. And last month, several of the high court's justices expressed doubts that the president actually had the sweeping power to declare national emergencies in order to slap tariffs on goods from almost every country on earth, including Canada. So if the court strikes down the tariffs, importers may be entitled to refunds. And that possibility has prompted many companies, including Costco, to file actions to get in line for these potential refunds. Now, Trump claims he has an almost unlimited right to impose tariffs, a power the Constitution gives Congress under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. But he has now lost twice in court over this issue.
So we'll see what happens with the Costco thing. And tickets to next summer's FIFA World Championship World Cup games continue to be a hot commodity, and that's despite really high prices.
Yes, that's right. So tickets for the games in Vancouver and Toronto have sold out almost as quickly as they've been released. Now, to even get a chance to purchase tickets, fans must be picked from a lottery. Now, FIFA has said tickets will start at about $80 Canadian, but can climb to more than $9,000. The first game in Canada and Toronto started at $500 in the first phase of sales. Now, FIFA says the market is what dictates the prices. It also says FIFA has a duty to make money off of the World Cup because 85% of those funds go back to the member countries who use it to support and grow the sport. And of course, fans can turn to the secondary market, but the cheapest ticket for the first game in Vancouver was listed at almost $800 on FIFA's resale site. Prices on StubHub were slightly lower at $481. I guess that's kind of a bargain if you compare it to $800, I suppose. And other fans, though, may still be in luck. The next phase of ticket sales begins with a draw, which is open from December 11th until January 13th. Anything that you're interested in going to, Marcy, where you may be looking at these tickets?
Oh, man. Do you know what? I love sporting events and I love when there's lots at stake. So I get it. I would be a hypocrite if I said I hadn't spent hundreds of dollars before on going to see the Yankees in Boston, down in Boston. And you kind of think it's a once in a lifetime thing. But man, nowhere near $9,000.
Yeah. And also, I mean, if you don't live in those cities, you're going to have to travel there, accommodations. I'm sure, things are going to be bumped up in costs. So, yeah, I know my boyfriend's kids want to go, but I don't know. It seems expensive.
All right, Crystal Lee, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Crystal Lee Ramlichan, live with our business news on CBC. Well, remember back in the day when being discovered online was strange? Justin Bieber was pretty much one of the originals, right? 2008, singing a little ditty on YouTube, gets discovered. Justin Bieber released his 7th album this year. It's called Swag. It debuted #1 on the Billboard Canadian Albums chart. He's now heading into the Grammys. These were just announced. So next February, he has 4 nominations: Best Pop Vocal Album, Album of the Year, Best Pop Solo Performance, and Best R&B Performance. Here's why. Have a listen to Daisies on CBC.
Throwing petals like, do you love me or not? Head is spinning and it don't know when to stop. You said forever, babe, did you mean it or not? Hold on, hold on. You leave me on red, babe, but I still get the message. Instead of a line, it's 3 dots, but I can connect them. And if it ain't right, babe, you know I respect it. But if you need time, just take your time. Honey, I get it, I get it, I get it. Way you got me all in my head. Think I'd rather you in my bed. Whatever it is, you know I can take it. I'm counting the days, how many days till I can see you again. Blowing kisses like, will you catch 'em or not? I'm Cupid with arrows, babe, I'm just shooting my shot. If I could get in, drop me a pin, hop in the whip and come over. Don't wanna be friends, just in the skin, I wanna get closer, closer, closer. The way you got me all in my head. Think I'd rather you in my bed. Whatever it is, you know I can take it. I'm counting the days, how many days till I can see you again. Oh, my love, holding my feelings, baby. You got me all loving all in my bed. You got me all, you got me all in my head. You got me all in my head. You got me all, you got me all in my head. You got me all in my head. Every time. The way you got me all in my head. You got me all in my head. Think I'd rather you in my bed. Whatever it is, you know I can take it. Counting the days, how many days till I can see you again.
Justin Bieber, Daisies. We'll see how many Grammys he picks up. He's nominated for 4. Best Pop Vocal, Best Pop Solo, Best R&B. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM. It is 12 minutes now to 8 o'clock to 7 o'clock. I'm ahead of myself here. Thanks for joining us in the show this morning. I'm Marcy Marcuse with our team here. Very cold one out there, as I've been saying. Bundle up if you're walking. Certainly if you're at the bus stop, you're going to feel it. Cover up everything. -18 right now, -16 the high in Winnipeg. It's going to feel like -29. Risk of frostbite, obviously. Well, next on the show, we'll be doing ongoing coverage about how to keep kids, specifically foster kids, safer in this province. And a warning, our next story does repeat some graphic details that may be upsetting, but they're important for context. As you've been hearing in news this week, a 6-year-old girl may be left paralyzed for her life after she was allegedly abused by her foster parents. That is according to search warrant documents obtained by CBC News. Police were called to a home in Winnipeg September 19th. Police found the child with a fractured spine, bruising over her body, and tape burns on her mouth. Jamie Fow is the president of the Manitoba Foster Parent Association. She's been a foster parent for over a decade. She says the story is upsetting but not surprising. She spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal yesterday.
Unfortunately, like all of these tragedies that happen here in Manitoba and Canada and beyond, it's upsetting, it's frustrating, it's disheartening, but it is not surprising.
What do you mean by not surprising?
Manitoba in particular, we just do not have a system in place that provides adequate support, information funding, training to its foster parents and kinship parents. In this situation that we're talking about, it is a kinship family, but we don't provide enough support along the whole base of support for foster parents here in Manitoba. And so when we don't have capacity to respond to the needs of the complex needs of children in care and be trauma informed, it is setting everybody up for failure.
And when you talk about supports, are you talking about support for foster parents related to what they do, or support in terms of foster kids, or all of that?
All of that. To me, as the president, I feel like supporting foster parents is supporting the children that they're caring for, right? Just like with bio family situations, like we provide, the child allowance. We do these things knowing that, being a parent is a large responsibility. It takes a village to help raise children. But we are missing that in our foster care world for sure. So if you provide training for foster parents, I'm going to argue that the outcomes of those children in those homes are going to be more stable. And if you don't provide any type of service or support for foster parents, not only are the foster parents going to struggle, but so are the children that they are caring for.
So if we speak specifically about training,
yes.
What are some of the factors that can contribute? What do you know about what contributes to abuse occurring in foster care settings when it comes to the umbrella of training?
Yeah, so I think that, responding to the high complex needs of children in care is you have to have a lot of capacity. You have to understand the difference between a child who is choosing not to do something and a child who cannot do something. And when you flip that paradigm and when you become more of an advocate and an investigator into the behaviors of that child, you are going to respond in a wholly different way than if you are under the assumption that this child is doing this to cause grief or to make you upset.
So when you talk about complex needs, you're talking about really appreciating from research and from what is known out there about why a child might be acting in the way that they are and what that intention might be.
Exactly. And what you can do to respond to the needs of that child. And when too much is too much and you need to ask for help and you need to get an assessment or you need to get a referral and you need to ask for more support. And here in Manitoba, we have limited extra supports. We have foster parents are truly helping each other. We're lifting each other up. There is no other option. There's no mentorship program. There's no training. There's no centralized place that foster parents can come aside from the newly founded Foster Parent Association. There was nothing before that.
That idea of understanding why a kid might be doing something, why is that important? Why is knowing whether a kid is doing it on purpose or if it's because of a bunch of other things, why is that important?
I think it's that's the basis of trauma-informed care, right? Coming from a place of curiosity, of compassion, of protection. And so when foster parents come from that lens, and I can just say from my own experience, we became foster parents almost 15 years ago. I had no training or understanding of the system, and neither did my partner, Kevin. When I went back to school in 2013, I did my undergrad in psychology. I learned about the brain. I learned about trauma-informed care. I learned about approaches that were more successful. And so I became a whole new foster parent. And that is when I started advocating for training, because I had a bigger capacity to respond to the needs of my children. And that was not only rewarding for me, but incredibly, it just changed the nature of how we parented.
Jamie, not everyone is going to have the same training like you do. Is the problem here vetting? What do we know about the vetting process?
Oh, and that is definitely part of the problem as well. And I can say that because Manitoba, we are the most underfunded and unsupported foster parents in the country. And what we have found year after year is foster parents are either quitting their positions or downsizing. We went from a 4 placement home to a 1 placement home. And largely because we can't afford to foster. I mean, you're losing money generally. Lots of foster parents in this province get $24 a day to foster children and to cover the expenses. And as you can well imagine, that doesn't cover the costs. So we're losing good foster parents who have experience, who have been reliable and consistent. And agencies and all four authorities are becoming more and more desperate for foster parents. So I don't know for sure, but I am assuming sometimes these placements are being rushed. Sometimes foster parents are hired without, I mean, I guarantee you they have their criminal record check and their child welfare registry, but it needs to go well beyond that in terms of, is this person or people capable of raising high needs children in this province? Not just raising, but raising to promote positive outcomes.
And
if not,
do those security checks, your criminal record check, your vulnerable services sector check, do those give the answer of can this person do that?
No, I don't think so at all. I think those are necessary checks, absolutely, but that is like the tip of the iceberg of what actually needs to take place. And if we had a training program where foster parents had to go through prior to becoming licensed, you would see these red flags week after week of maybe foster parents answering questionnaires in a problematic way or just making comments. And that would be the opportunity to pull them aside. And then you would have an indication of, okay, this foster parent is willing to learn, ready to change, has potential or not. And if they're not, let's not hire them.
The province's Families Minister, Nahanni Fontaine, characterized this case as abominable abuse and that an internal investigation is underway. How confident are you that that investigation will rise up some of the problems that you've described?
Oh, I'm very confident the findings will show the red flags that foster parents have been screaming about for a generation.
Do you think anything will change when that happens?
Unfortunately, I have low hope because, we have had these reports. We have had significant number of children, vulnerable children in care, either unfortunately lose their lives or become gravely injured. And many reports come out with recommendations and very few of them are followed. So that's the key. I don't want another report with recommendations. I don't want another investigation. I want us to look at the recommendations from the significant number of reports that have been written in the last decade and start following those recommendations.
Do you have any plans on meeting with the Families Minister to make those demands?
Yes, for sure. And I will say, the Minister of Families and her department has been in contact with me over the last few months. And that is a channel that is so important and necessary to, when there are issues going on with foster parents, to have that open channel. And I truly, really do appreciate that opportunity.
Jamie Fowl, president of the Manitoba Foster Parent Association, foster parent for over a decade. Lots to think about in that interview with Faith Fundell from CBC on our ongoing coverage. Let's go to Josh Crabb. He's in our news center today.
Good morning. The chief of a Northern Cree Nation is calling on Manitoba to cancel the December moose hunt in its traditional territory. This after licenses were issued for most of the moose the province said could be sustainably harvested in the area. One of Winnipeg's former top cops is calling for a return of officers to some city schools after a registered sex offender was charged last week with assaulting a child in a school bathroom. And the fate of a 355-year-old document that set the stage for the colonial exploitation of much of Canada will be decided in a virtual auction today. Your next local CBC News is at 7:30.
Clear and cold, traffic cooperating, -18, going to be -29 in Winnipeg with lots of sunshine. Ahead on our medical column, new research suggests if you've had a concussion, you're at increased risk of being involved in a subsequent traffic accident. Also, Villa Rosa for years has had no trouble getting donations for baby formula for mums that they help in the city of Winnipeg, but now they're struggling to find enough. We're going to talk to them after 7.
The Current.
There are millions of young boys who grow up and the first male role model they have is a prison guard.
The American podcaster Scott Galloway believes there is nothing more dangerous than a lonely, broken young man, and that redefining masculinity in a healthy way will change that trajectory. Scott Galloway on strength, ambition, and emotional connection on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Canada stands firmly, shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine in the short and the long term.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand announcing millions of dollars in new military support for Ukraine. The ongoing war with Russia is leading today's NATO discussions in Brussels. A critical meeting between Russian and U.S. officials yesterday yielded no results. Now Ukraine's allies are pledging to keep the weapons and money flowing. Crystal Gomansing has more.
The best way to put pressure on the Russians is by doing two things. One is making sure that the Russians understand that the weapon flow into Ukraine will keep on going.
Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, said the second pressure lever on Russia is biting economic sanctions. Talks in Russia yesterday didn't result in any concrete outcomes that would end the war in Ukraine. There were threats against Europe and those who support Ukraine before the peace talks with the U.S. delegation even got underway. Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Europe of having a war agenda and that Russia is ready to fight. Rutte dismissed his comments.
I'm not going to react to everything Putin is saying.
NATO members and Ukrainian allies are also not deterred, including Canada. Anita Anand pledged a new round of $200 million to NATO's prioritized Ukraine requirements list, also known as Pearl.
Second, I am announcing that Canada is committing $35 million in security support through the NATO Comprehensive Assistance Package Fund.
Norway also announced another $500 million for Pearl, saying it has to be well equipped to defend itself and negotiate from a position of strength. NATO Secretary General Rutte hinted there could be more support announcements to share later in the day. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal has given Ottawa until late December to reveal its plan to fix the First Nations child welfare system. In October of last year, the Assembly of First Nations rejected the previous government's offer of more than $47 billion. Prime Minister Mark Carney is vowing to fix the system. He says his government will complete what he calls the crucial work.
This will help ensure the First Nations children grow up safe, secure, deeply connected to their families, their culture, their language.
The child welfare system is on today's agenda at the AFN meetings in Ottawa. CBC News has learned the chiefs are crafting their own proposal to reform on-reserve child and family services. Canada's free trade agreement with Mexico and the U.S. is facing scrutiny in Washington. 3 days of public hearings on the CUSMA Pact begin today. It is part of the mandatory review process by all three countries. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, remind us how it all works.
Marcia, when the original NAFTA was renegotiated during the first Trump administration, Canada fought against the idea of this 6-year review, fearing that it adds instability to the treaty when businesses can't be sure that the rules aren't going to change. They'd be reluctant to make big investment decisions. But one voice who's appearing at the hearings this week, Laura Dawson from the Future Borders Coalition, is taking some comfort from the fact that the functionaries at the United States Trade Representative's office in charge of this review are proceeding in relatively predictable ways.
I just hope that the rules and laws guys can have as great an influence as possible over the politically motivated voices, because on a rules and regulations basis, Canada comes out very, very strongly.
But protectionism runs deep in U.S. politics right now. Here's lawyer Lori Wallach from the Rethink Trade program in Washington.
There's still been a big trend, for instance, of Chinese companies moving into Mexico to be able to get low-wage workers to make products that then get sent duty-free into Canada and the United States.
The fear is that this review could balloon into a full-on renegotiation, or that an increasingly erratic White House could threaten to withdraw entirely. While Donald Trump can adjust the details with Canada and Mexico through side letters, a big overhaul or a termination would require Congress. And with midterms coming up next year, that could be a politically explosive grenade to throw.
What is Canada doing to prepare?
Well, the Carney government's steel announcement last week, for example, included tariff and enforcement measures to crack down harder on foreign steel entering its market and getting tougher on Chinese imports in particular. That may be the price of admission to any serious talks about returning to low or no tariff trade with the U.S.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Saskatchewan's opposition wants the province to be better prepared for wildfires. This summer was one of the worst fire seasons in Saskatchewan's history. Hundreds of buildings were destroyed. Tens of thousands of people had to leave their homes. Now the Saskatchewan NDP is proposing a bill to compel the government to adopt a wildfire strategy. Helena Mihalik has more.
We are the keepers of the land. We knew what to do. Nobody listened.
Carrie Lentowich says she's lost everything after wildfires destroyed her home, along with 200 others in Denair Beach. She wants to see Bill 609, or the Saskatchewan Wildfire Strategy Act, implemented. Legislation proposed by the province's opposition that would require the Sask government to create a provincial wildfire strategy. Jordan McPhail, the NDP's critic for Northern Affairs, says that the findings need to be shared with the public, especially for those living up north.
So we're bringing a bill forward to make sure that those local voices are heard. That's the first and most important part of this. But the second part is that accountability piece.
When a wildfire tore through Clayton Seawap's northern community of Denair Beach in June, he stayed back to fight the flames. The former fire-base supervisor says he wants the bill to pass because something needs to change before next summer. Seawap quit his job, frustrated over promises the government made.
We got this. We got it under control. We have it. They didn't have nothing. Everything was lost.
The Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency says it does consult locals and experts in their wildfire decision-making, but that it's possible they need to talk to more people to make informed decisions. The SPSA says if improvements need to be made, it will come out of the third-party review of the province's wildfire response. Helena Mihalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The U.S. government is turning to an Ontario company for armored vehicles. The $10 million purchase is for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Brampton, Ontario defense manufacturer Rochelle is providing the 20 emergency response tactical vehicles. The models purchased are designed to resist bullets and even bomb blasts. ICE officers are facing increasing criticism over their treatment of undocumented immigrants, and the Trump administration says it will provide whatever its officers need to do their jobs. A procurement document states that only Rochelle meets the department's requirements and can deliver the order within the 30 days requested. A doctor who pleaded guilty to selling ketamine to Matthew Perry is being sentenced today. He is the first of 5 people convicted in connection with the 2023 death of the Canadian-American actor. Steve Futterman has the latest from Los Angeles.
It was a death that shocked the entertainment world.
We begin tonight with breaking news. Matthew Perry, best known for starring in the hit sitcom Friends, has died at the age of 54.
An autopsy concluded that Matthew Perry died from an overdose of ketamine, which is often used to treat depression and in recent years has become a popular recreational drug. Last year, federal officials accused 5 people, charging them with supplying Perry with ketamine.
They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry.
Today, one of the key defendants in the case, Dr. Salvador Plasencia, will be sentenced. Plasencia pleaded guilty in July of supplying Perry with ketamine starting around a month before his death. In one case, he injected Perry with the drug. Federal officials say it was all about making money. Perry wanted the drug and was willing to pay thousands of dollars to get it. Although Plasencia is not expected to get the maximum sentence, 40 years in prison, former federal prosecutor Lori Levinson says he will likely spend significant time behind bars.
I do think that the judge will want to send a message that this is a dangerous, inappropriate practice.
During today's hearing, we may hear comments from Perry's parents. In a letter sent to the court, his mother and stepfather called Plasencia and the other defendants greedy jackals. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning. Welcome to a very cold Wednesday across Manitoba, everybody. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM. Coming up this hour.
SROs can play a role that a teacher cannot, that a parent cannot, because we're able to build a different type of relationship.
We're continuing our conversation about school safety after a child at an elementary school was grabbed by a stranger at school. The province has now asked school divisions to improve their safety plans. One of the options is adding more school resource officers. We're going to talk to a former Winnipeg police chief who was also a school resource officer for many years. You might recall that school resource officers were cut from schools. So we're going to talk about this ongoing issue. What is the best way forward? Also, an organization in Winnipeg that houses and helps single moms is now in need of donations of baby formula. We have Villa Rosa, the executive director, on with us in moments. First, though, Josh Crabb with Wednesday Morning Headlines.
Good morning. The chief of Mississippiwistic Cree Nation wants the province to cancel the December moose hunt in its traditional territory. Why the Northern Nation says Manitoba is ignoring its food needs and treaty rights. The fate of the Hudson's Bay Charter will be decided in virtual auction today, what it could mean for the historic document. And Winnipeg is taking the number of carvings in a city forest down a notch. Parks officials say there are too many etchings in Bois d'Esprit. Prospective carvers now need prior approval. Your next local CBC News is at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
Abby, I got to read you something here. I'm going to find it because it has to do with the weather. I just noticed that Taduli Lake's back on top as being the cold spot in the province. We're smiling and giggling because Taduli's so often, the cold spot that Corey's been trying to reach out to folks there. If you're listening and you're from there, we just kind of wanted to, crown you properly. But Tracy Mack wrote in because I posted days ago on my Facebook page about Taduli often being the cold spot in the province. It's kind of like Melita South is often the warm spot here, so we just have been noticing Taduli. But Tracy Mack wrote into the thread and said, I asked AI to do up a Christmas trivia for an upcoming event. And one of the questions I asked AI was, what was the coldest town in 2021 in Manitoba? Taduli was the answer. It recorded minus 47.8 degrees. Now, it's not quite that cold this morning. I think it's minus 30 right now, but crazy. What do we know, Abby?
Well, if you're looking for that range of minus 40s, the wind chill around Gillam actually feels like minus 43, minus 44 this morning. So it means a frostbite in minutes for folks in that part of that northern community. But across board, I would say it's bitterly cold, but it's going to be more like a bright start across the province today. We're going to be seeing lots of sunshine in the southern half of the province, while those extreme wind chills are going to make it really dangerously cold up north. Winnipeg right now, we're still at minus 18. We only get to minus 17 later, and then we warm up to minus 16 for our highs, but lots of sunshine in the forecast. If you're heading out, the wind chill actually feels like minus 29, so your face might be hurting a bit if you're making that transition from one bus to another. And that's the condition across the southern regions, minus 18 to minus 23s. That's what we're seeing. While up north, we're seeing wind chills in the valleys of minus 37 to minus 41. So it's more like extremely cold across board, but still some sunshine to dominate the south, while it's going to be more like wind chills to deal with up north. Winnipeg right now, minus 18.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, how's the commute looking?
Quiet commute so far. Haven't heard anything on the commuter line, but if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something, if you want to tell me about it, slippery highway conditions.
You're shuffling?
Yeah, if
We
you're
should add that.
if you're shuffling,
It's
they're
the
doing the Winnipeg
cold
shuffle,
walk.
arms beside you, just kind
Yeah.
of shuffling along. Yeah, let us know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Well, if you have been in the baby food aisle of your local grocery store lately, you might have noticed that baby formula is often locked now behind a glass door. The price has nearly doubled. Doubled since 2017. This is food. And affordable baby formula is very hard to come by. In Winnipeg, for the first time, Villa Rosa says they're struggling to find enough for the young mums and babies in their care. The organization in Winnipeg helps house young parents through pregnancy in the first few months following birth. For years, they've relied on donations, but now they've had to start buying it themselves. Carolyn Eva is Villa Rosa's executive director and joining us live via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning.
When did you first start to notice that, baby formula donations were, becoming a challenge?
This has been an issue for us for on and off for about a year. We used to have a number of groups that regularly donated, community people that would often just pop in with a can. We have a lactation consultant. We encourage breastfeeding, and lots of our moms do breastfeed, but right now we have a record number of babies. We have 14 babies, mostly under 2 or 3 months, and breastfeeding doesn't work for everyone. So we do provide formula for the first couple of months. Most of our moms are living in poverty. They rely on their child tax credit, which when you have a baby, it doesn't come for the first few months. So it's a struggle.
How short are you right now?
Right now, we're going week to week. Somebody did drop in yesterday with some. Sometimes it depends on different varieties. With new young moms, we often need the ready to feed, particularly overnight and on weekends when we have fewer staff available to help moms who are struggling.
When you think about the reasons donations may be down, how are you making sense of it?
Well, I think some of it, I think the cost of, like the increase in cost is a big deal when people are thinking of what to donate. There are less expensive things, perhaps. We have more babies. Prior to the pandemic, women only stayed with us 4 weeks postpartum. So they were moving on and then getting formula from other sources.
Are they staying longer now?
They are staying longer now. Housing is a huge issue. It's very difficult as a young single person living in poverty to find suitable housing. So we have women staying 4 or 5 months postpartum, needing the...
Please go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
I was just going to say, needing the supports that we provide. We have a full high school program run by Winnipeg One School Division. So women can continue attending school and living with us. And then they have some time to work with Manitoba Housing to find suitable housing.
When you need to dip into your own budget then to buy the formula, where do you find the money?
Well, we did get a donation of gift cards from Co-op Groceries, which has helped a little bit over the last year.
But was that for your food budget then? Like, are you having to...
Well, that's for healthy food, yeah. So our food budget really is where the flexibility is. So that's generally where the funds are coming from.
How much are you spending a week now on baby formula?
A couple $100, probably most weeks.
If people want to help and they're listening, what should they understand, Caroline, about you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but about the type of formula that will be most beneficial to you and how to get a donation to you or get more information?
Yeah, we take donations Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30 at our location at 784 Wolseley. The ready to feed is the one we seem to need the most of. Unfortunately, it is the most expensive way to buy formula. We also do use the powder for moms who are a little more, babies a little bit older and used to formula feeding. the powdered is needed as well.
All right, we'll leave it there this morning. Thank you very much for being with us today, and highlighting some of the challenges that you're having.
Thank you so much.
That is
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. That's Caroline Eva joining us live via Zoom. Executive Director of Villa Rosa at 784 Wolseley. They accept donations, as she said, there during daytime hours, and they're looking for ready-to-feed formula. They are low this year.
This winter, help make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. All it takes is one can of food, $1, or even 1 hour of your time. Your generosity will help those in need and bring us closer together as Manitobans. Join us as we donate a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba December 5th. Visit cbc.ca/kindmb for more.
Still ahead, we're going to bust some myths about concussions. We're also going to look at a story on our medical column today with Dr. Raj Bhardwaj. Right now, the Love Letters are a Winnipeg band, and if you've been to a show, you know they're known for being wildly energetic, so we thought we could use some of that this morning. Here's their newest single. It's called 2,000 Matching Tattoos. What a tone change in the middle of that one, waking us up on a cold Wednesday morning. Winnipeg's The Love Letters. That's their new single. It's called 2000 Matching Tattoos. If you want to catch them in person, you can warm up with them in January. They're playing the King's Head on the 10th. Scott Regari is back with Morning Sports. Do you have any tattoos, Scott?
No, I do not. I wasn't expecting that question.
I know.
Morning,
Well,
Marcy.
the tune was about tattoos. I got one when I was 50 finally. Yeah.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. And I thought to myself, why didn't I do this earlier? I was so afraid it was going to hurt so bad. And for me, it wasn't like, it was like, oh, yeah. Brought my childhood friend. She was holding my hand. I'm like, mostly it was because I wanted to face that fear. So for me, it was kind of a psychological thing.
Interesting.
And then I went, I got to go back and do more of this. There's some beautiful artists in Winnipeg. So
Yeah. Well, I'm not averse to it. I just haven't
gone
frankly
there.
had the courage to do it yet.
Yeah.
So hearing what I heard from you, maybe I'll change my mind.
Let's talk about hockey. It was a memorable night in the NHL for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, and not because of an abundance of success among the Canadian teams, by the way. Now, the Leafs, in their first game against Florida since getting eliminated by them in the playoffs, got some payback last night. They beat the Panthers while Ottawa topped the Habs. But aside from that, a night of lost causes. Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, they all dropped their games. It is especially tough in the West at the moment. Just ask the Jets. Colorado has lost just once in regular time all season long. They could end up with the best record the league has ever seen by the time all is said and done. Then you have Vegas, perennial cup contenders. The Golden Knights have brought in a controversial reinforcement in goal. Carter Hart made 27 saves last night in Vegas' win over Chicago. Cart Marcy is the first of the 5 Canadian World Junior players acquitted of sexual assault in July to play an NHL game, and he talked about what it meant.
Skating out for the first time, just an amazing feeling. It didn't really sink in until the national anthem. Just kind of looking around and just that feeling that you're back playing. It's been a really difficult journey to get back. Wouldn't have been able to do without my family and friends. I'm just so happy to be playing the game again.
The fans in Vegas certainly greeted Hart with vigor last night. He received the loudest ovation of any Golden Knight during the pregame introductions. Could be a rockier reception, Marcy, going forward for Hart. Vegas is about to begin a 5-game road trip. Meanwhile, the Jets, I mentioned them, they're in Montreal tonight to take on the Habs. Winnipeg currently 2 points out of a playoff spot.
To basketball, where the Raptors are back on the winning track.
Yeah, they edged Portland last night, ending their, meager 2-game losing slide. As they played pretty well again without their injured Canadian star R.J. Barrett. He's been out with a knee injury since November 23rd, and last night was just the second time since his injury the Raptors have managed more than 100 points in a game. Emmanuel Quickley, who had 22 points himself, was asked about it all.
We're missing somebody that averages 23, 25 points a game and also plays defense. So we miss RJ a lot. And with RJ being out, good opportunity for the other guys to, get going. I mean, everybody has to step up. Everybody has to kind of take on that load as a unit.
So the Raptors are off to a winning start in December after going 11-2 in November. Things get tougher for them tomorrow, though. They will host LeBron James and the Lakers. LeBron playing his 23rd season in the league to match that number of his.
Finally, some potentially big news in tennis.
Yeah, Serena Williams, Marcy, threw cold water on the idea she might be planning a return. She wrote on social media yesterday that she is not coming back, not written in capitals. This comes following news that the 23-time Grand Slam winner had registered with tennis's drug testing body, which is the first step required by a player seeking to come out of retirement. Williams has not played since the 2022 U.S. Open, when she didn't even use the word retire to describe what she was doing. Instead, she declared she was evolving away from the sport.
It takes a lot of work to get here. Clearly, I'm still capable, but it takes a lot more than that. I'm ready to be a mom and explore a different version of Serena. And technically, in the world, I'm still super young, so I want to have a little bit of a life while I'm still walking.
That's Serena back in 2022. And listening to that and recognizing she is now 44, it does seem unlikely that she would come back, although Serena has made a career out of doing the unlikely. And remember, her older sister Venus returned to the sport over the summer after a year and a half away. Venus warmly received at the U.S. Open, and around that time, she told reporters, "The only thing I'm missing now is having Serena with me." So this might be a case of wait and see.
It's hard to understand if you've been an athlete at that level, what else would measure up. And I'm not talking about her personal life and you know, that bringing fulfillment, but I'm thinking professionally and, you know, what that feels like, that adrenaline, and then using your skill, your talent. Like, it would be very difficult to match. I think that's often why athletes will maybe return. So,
and in their 40s more than ever, right? Lindsey Vonn, I think of Tom Brady in football. There are a number of examples these days because they're healthy enough to do it if they want to for a change.
All right, Scott, thank you.
You bet.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's mainly clear and minus 19 downtown. Clear and minus 21 in Dauphin, ice crystals, and minus 23 in Churchill. More Manitoba students will be able to train as combined laboratory and X-ray technologists. This province has an agreement with Saskatchewan Polytechnic to double the number of Manitoba seats in the course from 5 to 10. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says the increase will cost the province around $178,000 for the coming year. They say there is a shortage of technologists, particularly in rural and northern areas. The minister says students accepted into the program will be given an offer by Shared Health to help change that.
A return of service agreement in place with regional health authorities in partnership with municipalities so that they know that they've got a job waiting for them when they're done their training. Again, this is a model that we've seen work already in Manitoba. We've seen it be successful in rural communities.
Asseguera says this will bridge the training gap in Manitoba. They say next year, Assiniboine College will have completed its upgrades, and once approved, it will launch its own program in Manitoba with 20 training seats. The chief of a Cree Nation in northern Manitoba is calling on the province to cancel the December moose hunt across its traditional territory. Mississippiwistic Cree Nation, about 400 kilometers north of Winnipeg, says Manitoba is disregarding its food needs and treaty rights after licenses were issued for most of the moose the province estimated could be sustainably harvested in the area. The hunt opened Monday. Mississippiwistic Chief Heidi Cook said in a letter to the Natural Resources Minister, the nation has a firm expectation the province will cancel the hunt.
The numbers kind of back up what we've been saying, is that there's just not enough moose to meet our food needs and to allow for licensed harvesting to happen at the same time. And right now what the province is doing is completely disregarded our food needs, and all the available moose are being licensed for hunters.
The minister in charge, Ian Bushy, says Manitoba is committed to ensuring people can hunt while also protecting moose populations. Bushy says the province will meet with Mississippiwistic to support fair and safe access to hunting areas. For more on this story, you can head to cbc.ca/Manitoba. A former Winnipeg police chief sees merit in the presence of officers in schools. Devon Clunas spoke to CBC after a registered sex offender was charged with assaulting a child at Darwin School last week. It's part of the Louis Riel School Division, which pulled out of the school resource program in 2021. The Premier and Education Minister both said this week SROs have a role to play, and Clunas is echoing those calls.
People want their SROs back. And I think it's really important that we move forward in terms of getting police officers back into the schools, not to do law enforcement, but to build relationships with young people.
He says the most enjoyable part of his policing career came during his tenure as an SRO. He believes they play a critical role in schools, a role that a teacher or parent sometimes cannot play. You can listen to a full interview with Devon Clunas on Information Radio coming up this morning at 7:50. The fate of a 355-year-old document that set the stage for the colonial exploitation of much of Canada will be decided in virtual auction today. The Hudson Bay Charter was signed by King Charles II and gave the company rights to all of Manitoba, as well as large parts of Saskatchewan, Alberta, Nunavut, and Northern Ontario and Quebec. A source tells CBC the only bidders in today's online auction are the wealthy Thompson and Weston families, who announced a joint $18 million bid ended last month. Cody Grote is an associate professor of Indigenous Studies at Western University.
In some ways, it was a necessary evil, I think, to include these wealthy families and corporations in the public donation of this item. But I think it did result in a best case scenario overall.
Grote says the Weston Thompson bid is a positive because they've agreed to irrevocably donate it to 4 public institutions, including the Manitoba Museum and Archives of Manitoba. A court is expected to approve the sale December 11th. And finally, Winnipeg is whittling back on the woodwork in Bois d'Esprit. Potential carvers now need prior approval before they take their knives to trees in the St. Vital forest. Area Councillor Brian Mays says there are too many carvings in the woods now.
Well, it started off as this nice tradition in Bois d'Esprit with carvings on dead trees, and there were a couple of quite big ones, and then it kind of got out of hand, and people started to complain, saying there are people carving into live trees, and there are too many of these, and people feel they have the right to do it anywhere.
Only carvings of nature or forest images will be approved. Text, symbols, and plaques are not allowed. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's going on weather-wise. Abby is here with a regional forecast.
Yeah, where I see bitterly cold across the province this morning, though we're expecting some sunny conditions in the southern part of the province, while those wind chills still a concern in the north. Winnipeg, frigid clear, minus 19 at the Forks at this time. We will see sunshine through the day. Some breezy conditions will come from the north, and our highs would be near minus 16 at this time. We're going to be hovering between 18, 17s and 19s on and off till we get to that 16 before we go back to minus around 19 overnight. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, more than Winkler, Alton and Morris down to the U.S. border. We're looking at temperatures hover between minus 16s and minus 18. Clear skies also climbing to minus 15 later. The wind chill for this region actually feel like minus 29 this morning. In the Westman region, minus 24 and cold and Brandon. Clear conditions you have warming up to minus 16 later. Dauphin is at minus 21 at this time. Clear skies, you reach a high of minus 16. The wind chill feels like minus 32 for folks in the Parkland region. Good morning to our friends in the Interlake region. Gimli, you're at minus 20 and clear right now. Sunshine on its way to your end of the province. You warm up to minus 15, though this strong morning wind chill makes it feel like minus 32. Then we move further to the powerful influence surrounding communities. We're looking at cold conditions, minus 22. At this time, some areas seeing minus 24. Clear skies, you also warm to minus 18 later, though the wind chill feels close to minus 38. A good chance of snow starting later tonight for folks in that part of the province. Now in Thompson, we have that frosty minus 28. Drifting snow in that part of the province. You see your high around minus 21, though that northwest wind, it's going to make it feel colder than minus 21. The wind chill feels like minus 41 this morning. This means frostbites possible in minutes. And then if you track conditions in Gillam, we're looking at minus 30 at this time. Also getting some drifting snow. You only get to minus 23 later, but the wind chill feels like minus 43 for folks in that part of the province. Then we track it to the York region and Churchill. We're seeing minus 23 ice crystals there. It's going to stay really blustery then. Cold highs would only be around minus 22, but the wind chill stays around minus 40 due to those gusty north winds. Winnipeg right now, we are at minus 19.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Okay, into the commute now with Corey.
And it's been a pretty quiet commute, actually, overall so far. Haven't heard of any issues out there on the roads, on the commuter line, anything like that. But if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something, you see some slippery conditions on the highways, give me a call, let your fellow listeners know about it. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Really pretty sky out there, kind of purple-pink this morning. Well, if you are driving right now, you might want to pay particular attention to our medical column today. New research conducted in Ontario reveals an interesting link between concussions and traffic accidents. It suggests that adults are at greater risk of being involved in a car crash following a concussion. The study was published recently in the journal BMJ Open, and our host, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj, is here to explain. Hey there.
Good morning, Marcy.
So, tell us about the study.
Yeah, these researchers really wanted to know if having a concussion was associated with an increased risk of being involved in a serious car crash. So they combed 20 years of data, 178 hospitals in Ontario, looking at the health records of over 3 million adults who had either been diagnosed with a concussion or an ankle sprain. And they used ankle sprain as sort of a control group, right? So people who had been injured and seen in hospital, but their injury didn't involve the thinking part of their body. So then they looked at those people's health records going forward for an average of about 10 years to see if they had been involved in a car crash after the injury that, either gave them a concussion or an ankle sprain. And it turns out that if you had a concussion, you were about 49% more likely to have a car crash compared to people who had an ankle sprain. And the risk was even higher if it wasn't your first concussion. So like 73% end up. And it was way higher in the first month after a concussion, like 600% higher after a concussion versus an ankle sprain.
Well, what did the researchers make of those numbers then?
Well, we know that a concussion is a type of brain injury that temporarily disrupts normal brain function, but then your brain recovers, usually over days to weeks. But it's often hard to tell, when or if your brain is fully recovered. On the flip side, driving a car is one of the most cognitively demanding tasks that we do, right? You need to be attentive and focused. You need to have coordination between your hands and your feet and your brain, plus fast reaction time. All of those things can be impaired when you have a concussion. So researchers say, look, this is probably what's going on because the ankle sprain folks, they had way less of a risk of being in a car crash.
If someone gets hit while playing sports or has a bad slip or trip, they fall, remind us how they would know if they had a concussion.
Yeah, so the first thing is that there's this idea out there, there's this myth that you have to have been knocked out, like lost consciousness to have a concussion. That's not true. Now, if you were knocked out, or if you're still not back to being fully alert after about half an hour, or if you've got any memory loss around the event, then you have a more serious concussion at least, and you should be checked out, relatively soon. But even if you weren't knocked out, you can still have a mild traumatic brain injury, which is what a concussion is. So in terms of, how people feel, they say, look, I feel dazed, I feel disoriented, confused for a few minutes, just foggy. Sometimes people will say, yeah, that they sort of walk with a little bit of loss of balance, or they're just a little bit slow to respond to questions and stuff. There's another really subtle but good clue for concussion. They'll sit there and they'll shake their head just for a second. They'll be like, ugh. It's kind of the idea that they're sort of shaking to clear their head or to shake off the stars or the cobwebs,
What kinds of things should people be doing after a concussion to get better faster and stay safe?
The advice has evolved a lot over the years. We used to say, oh, you need to go sit in a dark room and quiet and no screens and, no nothing. And now we don't say that. We say, look, you should take it easy on your brain, at least for the first day or two. You should try to avoid things that are hard on your brain, specifically alcohol and cannabis and stuff, but also, physical stuff can be hard on your brain. So, don't exercise for the first couple days, maybe take a day or two off of school or off of work, things like that, because that's hard on your brain. As you start to feel better, then you can gradually start to ramp up your activity, both physical activity and cognitive activity, right? Brain activity. But you might notice that as you ramp it up, your symptoms might come back, in which case you should kind of back off for a while. It really does help to see either your family doctor or a sports med doctor or a physiotherapist or even a concussion specialist if needed to get personalized recommendations.
I know that every time we talk about concussions, there's a myth that just persists. What is it?
Yeah, this idea that people shouldn't fall asleep after a concussion, like, oh, don't sleep, stay with me, slap, 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 that is a very common myth that just won't go away. It's totally fine to sleep. Your brain needs time to recover. So getting enough sleep and cognitive rest is super important. The problem is that if you faint afterwards, after your concussion, or if you're not fully alert when you are awake, then those can be signs of a more serious head injury, and you should get checked out.
So do you tell your concussion patients not to drive?
So I generally tell them not to drive home from where I'm seeing them, in the hospital or in the clinic. Driving home after a concussion would kind of be like running home after an ankle sprain, and you obviously wouldn't do that. So most concussion guidelines advise not to drive for 24 hours. But this study says, look, the risk is elevated for the first month which is in line with how long we figure full recovery from a concussion often takes. So based on this study, I'm going to start saying, yeah, don't drive home today, but also there's this evidence that there's this increased risk of car crash in the first month after a concussion, especially if it's not their first concussion.
All right, Dr. Barbwash, thank you.
My pleasure.
You will regularly hear our CBC medical column here at this time every Wednesday morning at 7:40 with our host doctor and columnist Raj Bardwash.
This winter, help us make the season kind by supporting local food banks. Join CBC from December 5th to 7th to kick off the season of giving with a food truck pop-up at Zoo Lights at the Assiniboine Zoo. For a small donation, enjoy a unique dish created by renowned chef Mandel Hitzer of Deer and Almond. 100% of your donation will go directly to Harvest Manitoba. Find more ways to give to food banks in your community at cbc.ca/kind.
Well, speaking of being kind, speaking of the holidays, we asked you yesterday for your favorite Christmas concert memories. Here's some calls we got.
Hi, this is Marlene Perrin. I'm calling from Morden with a Christmas concert memory. I've been an elementary music teacher for over 25 years, and one of my favorite memories is when I had a class on stage. We were doing some movement to Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker music, the Tray Pack, with lots. That's the one that goes da 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 really fast and lots of jumping. And this one girl was wearing capris. And as we were about halfway through, I felt a tap urgently on my shoulder, and somebody kept tapping me, and I turned, and it was her mother, the mother of a girl whose pants, every time she jumped, were slowly falling down her legs till they were on the floor. And by the time we figured that out, it was over. Thanks.
Hi there, my name is Marianne Martin. Just calling about your Christmas concert memories. The best one I have is not for me, but it was for my daughter when she was in grade 3. She was the star of The Little Bell That Wouldn't Sing, and when she was at her grandma's house, she was talking to grandma about whether she should sing it in regular or in opera. It was a great memory. Bye.
I love that. Keep them coming, whether you're a teacher, whether it's your memory, whether it's something you witnessed at a school, a holiday concert along the way. What are those lovely little stories that brighten our day? Share them on the listener line, 204-788-3205. It is 13 minutes now to 8 o'clock on CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for joining our team here at the show. Minus 19, really cold in the city today. We're only going to be around minus 16 for the rest of the day, and it's going to be clear and sunny, all that beautiful winter sunshine that comes with the cold. Ahead after 8 o'clock.
The driving behavior that I see on the roads is horrific. Speeding and distracted driving are the top causes of accidents, collisions, crashes.
That's Waverley West Councillor Janice Lukes weighing in on our conversation about how to improve pedestrian safety in Winnipeg. 9 deaths reported this year. One of the things that the councillor mentioned was successive programs in Australia and New Zealand. So after 8, we're going to take you down under to hear more about what they've done there to improve traffic safety and pedestrians. Next on the show, Premier Wab Kinew says Manitoba kids deserve to feel safe in schools. As you've been hearing this week and in the news this morning, the province is committing an extra $500,000 to help schools review their emergency safety plans. This comes after a child was grabbed by a stranger in the washroom at Darwin School last week. It's believed the man hid in a washroom stall after entering the school. Kinew is now directing all schools in Manitoba to implement controlled access plans and consider adding more school resource officers. Here's some of what he said at a media conference on Monday.
Nothing else matters unless our kids are safe. What happened at Darwin School last week should never happen. Every child deserves to grow up free from harm and free to be who they are. My thoughts are with this child and their family. I also want to speak to parents out there, including the parents of this young child. You are right to trust that your kids will be safe at school. You're making the right decision every day when you send them to class so that they can grow and learn and that they can reach their full potential. And the expectation that when you send your child to school that they will be safe is a fundamental guarantee that our society must uphold and our government must make good on. Immediately, we've given money to the Manitoba School Boards Association for every school in Manitoba to look at their safety plans and do what needs to be done in light of what happened last week. We're encouraging schools to implement controlled access if they haven't already. And we're approaching this in a way that I think understands that the way a school in Wawanesa or Wabodin responds to what happened last week might be different than a way a school in Winnipeg responds. We're also going to work with communities and with law enforcement across the province to support the presence of school resource officers in Manitoba, as well as other security options that fit local needs.
Now, while some schools in Manitoba have school resource officers, not all of them do, and some have said they're ineffective. A report by the Louis Riel School Division in 2021, you might recall, found that having officers in schools led to increased risks and feelings of fear and discrimination for some students, specifically among Black and Indigenous students and people of color. Now, Devon Clunas is a former Winnipeg police chief. He held that position from 2012 to 2016. He was also a school resource officer for 5 years. He worked in 52 different schools. He's here to weigh in. You might have heard a bit of him on the news, but he's here live via Zoom to talk more. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Marcy.
So what do you think of the idea of adding more resource officers in schools? You heard there what the Premier was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me say fully, I wholeheartedly agree with the comments by the Premier. And I think it's a very profound stance that he's taken because we know in the recent past, people have just not been able to come out and make such a statements. I personally agree with having school resource officers in schools. And it's not just about having officers in schools. What we're talking about here really is the social safety network that we want to put in place for young people. We're talking about really a fundamental shift in society. Police officers, teachers, parents, all of those entities are here to help create a healthy learning environment for our young people. And you know, the rhetoric in regards to it being a disproportionately negatively impacting Black and Indigenous students, I think it's something that we really have to look at. We certainly don't want any sector of our society navigating school life or society being fearful of the police. And I think the best place for us to start building that real healthy relationship is in elementary school, in high school. So this is a really important step for us to take.
It's interesting because, that report that we were citing, the Louis Riel School Division in 2021, finding officers in schools led to increased risk, feelings of discrimination. I know you've shared before that when you were younger, you were afraid of police officers. What kind of an impact did relationships with police have on you then?
Oh, a significantly positive one. As I said, typically what I would see in terms of the relationship between people like myself and police was what I saw on television. And think about how many young people are being socialized today. It was when I finally had the opportunity to sit down and speak with a police officer face to face, I realized what I was seeing or what I was hearing was not the truth. So it really is important for us to sit down and have these conversations. Now, you've mentioned that one report. I can bring forward some very robust reports that have been done across this country that say otherwise. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to sit down, have a very meaningful conversation, have a dialogue, determine what do we want for our young people, what do we want for society moving forward, and what is the best way that we can construct something that will work for all of us. As I said, we know without a shadow of a doubt, currently what we have in place is not working. It is time for us to come back to the table, reevaluate, and look at the outcome that we're trying to achieve and devise an SRO program that's going to meet all of our needs. And I know that's wholeheartedly possible.
Some people might be thinking that if there were an officer in the school, in this case, the case, that led us to have a conversation this morning, that effectively this still could have happened. I wonder what your thoughts are on making the school environment safer overall, because there are other things that they could look at, right, in terms of enhancing those safety plans.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I can't really comment on this specific incident because I don't know what type of measures they have in place at Darwin School. Certainly, they're going to be examining that. But as I said, this is not just a conversation about police officers in schools. It is about the type of society that we're trying to build. And as I said, the whole mindset that a student or any member of our community needs to be afraid of the police is something that's really challenging as I look to the future of a society that we want. I want every single person in our society to realize the police are here to protect you. The best place for us to start is with young people because, as I said, for us to say to children, you need to be fearful of the police. Imagine that. They grow into teenage years, into adulthood. At what point do you think suddenly they're going to realize that if I'm in need, I can reach out to that police officer? We're setting ourselves up for a very difficult, very negative, very destructive paradigm moving forward by telling young people that they need to be fearful of the police. I think that's a fundamental shift that we need to make. We need to look at this. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you about your experience. I apologize for interjecting there, but what were your interactions like with students? Can you share maybe a story of an interaction that stayed with you?
Thrilled to share that with you, Marcy. Nothing but incredibly positive experiences. I would have just a throng of kids consistently following me down the halls. Let me tell you this. The number of adults I get now who come up to me and said, "You were my SRO. Here is the impact that you had on me." This past summer, I had a gentleman invited me to his son's graduation from grade 12. I was this gentleman's SRO. Now his child is graduating, and because of the impact I had on him as his SRO, he wanted me to be there. So you talk about intergenerational impact, positive impact. Nothing but positive impacts that I've had with young people. And I consistently hear from adults, here's the impact you had as my SRO. That's what we need to focus on.
It's interesting that at the beginning of the conversation, you were saying you wholeheartedly agree with what the Premier said. We played a clip of what he shared with the province on Monday. But you said that you were applauding him, and please forgive me if I don't get this exactly quoted, but for saying something that before wouldn't have been said out loud. What did you mean by that?
Absolutely. I'm going to be very frank with you. This pull away from SROs happened significantly in our country after the tragic events with George Floyd in Minneapolis. And it became a very political issue. People just didn't have the courage to stand up and say, no, we appreciate what happened. It was atrocious, but we can't simply paint all SROs, nor can we paint police officers with that same brush. And it became a political issue. And so I do applaud our Premier for standing firm and not abiding by political correctness, but saying what needs to be said and doing the right things in the best interest of our young people and of community and of the broad society. We need more elected officials to have that type of courage.
Thank you for your time this morning, Devon Clunas. Appreciate your perspective.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You too. That's Devon Clunas, a former Winnipeg police chief. He held that position from 2012 to 2016. He was also, as I mentioned, a school resource officer for 5 years. He worked in 52 different schools. If you want to weigh in, 204-788-3205. Here's Josh Crabb now to update headlines at 8:03.
Good morning. More Manitoba students will be able to train as combined laboratory and X-ray technologists. This province has an agreement with Saskatchewan Polytechnic to double the number of Manitoba seats in the course from 5 to 10. The chief of a northern Cree Nation is calling on Manitoba to cancel the December moose hunt. This after licenses were issued for most of the moose the province said could be sustainably harvested in the area. And Winnipeg is whittling back on the woodwork in a city forest in St. Vital. Why potential carvers now need prior approval before they take their knives to trees in Bois d'Esprit. Your next local CBC News is at 8:30.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Weather-wise, clear, cold, sunny in Winnipeg, -19. We're going to be -16 for the day. Same with Brandon, although right now you're -24. And in Thompson, it's -28 with drifting snow. Your high is going to be -21, so it's cold across the province. If you need us in traffic, 788-3093. So far, so good. Usually on a clear, cold day like this, we get dry highways. If that's not the case, though, please call Corey and check 511 before you head out. After 8 o'clock, we're going to turn to the Aussies for tips on road safety. A specialist who has researched speed management in New Zealand, the UK, Australia, and the US for some 30 years is going to talk about what Winnipeggers can learn from some of his research about road safety when it comes to pedestrians. Interestingly enough as well, he's going to share some of the things that they thought would work that didn't. So what are those things, and have we tried them here in Winnipeg? It's coming up after 8 o'clock. Stay with us. You're on CBC 89.3 FM.
On Cue, Walter Mosley is an award-winning author best known for his best-selling book series about the character Easy Rawlins. Walter will be here to tell you about his latest book, about telling Black history through Easy Rawlins, and why he thinks his books still resonate 17 years later.
You know, you go through the process of your life, slowly changing from this to that to another thing.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The American podcaster Scott Galloway believes there is nothing more dangerous than a lonely, broken young man, and that redefining masculinity in a healthy way will change that trajectory. Scott Galloway on strength, ambition, and emotional connection on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Ottawa is facing down a court-ordered deadline to present a new plan to fix the First Nations child welfare system. The Assembly of First Nations rejected the previous Liberal government's offer of more than $47 billion. Prime Minister Mark Carney is vowing to fix the system, but as Olivia Stefanovich reports, his new plan is not the only one in the works.
We will complete the crucial work.
After almost 2 decades of litigation, Prime Minister Mark Carney is pledging his government will be the one to reform the First Nations child welfare system once and for all.
This will help ensure the First Nations children grow up safe, secure, deeply connected to their families, their culture, their language.
But Carney's plan isn't the only one in the works.
This moment in time will go down in history.
CBC News was invited to attend a behind-the-scenes session at the Assembly of First Nations meetings in Ottawa, hosted by chiefs and children's advocates. They are crafting their own proposal to reform on-reserve child and family services. Mary Teegee is the group's representative for British Columbia.
I just wanted to remind everybody how we got here today. It's been a long battle.
First Nations leaders rejected the previous Liberal government's offer of more than $47 billion, concerned the money wasn't guaranteed and the discrimination against their children wouldn't end. The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered the government to submit a new plan by December 22nd. It will be compared to the other proposal put forward by chiefs and advocates that will come up for discussion at the Assembly of First Nations later today. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Anita Anand, is announcing more support for Ukraine. Anand is in Brussels today for meetings at NATO headquarters.
Canada, alongside several allies, will purchase a package of military capabilities under the Pearl program. This is the NATO vehicle for military support for Ukraine. Canada's contribution to the purchase of this Pearl package will be $200 million.
Anand also announced an additional $35 million for Ukraine to help purchase resources like fuel, communications equipment, and medical supplies. Several countries are reaffirming their support for Ukraine after yesterday's failed talks in Moscow. Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff were unable to make any progress on a U.S. proposed peace plan. Saskatchewan's opposition wants the province to be better prepared for wildfires. This summer was one of the worst fire seasons in Saskatchewan's history. Hundreds of buildings were destroyed. Tens of thousands of people had to leave their homes. Now the Saskatchewan NDP is proposing a bill to compel the government to adopt a wildfire strategy. Helena Michalik has more.
We are the keepers of the land. We knew what to do. Nobody listened.
Carrie Lentowich says she's lost everything after wildfires destroyed her home, along with 200 others in Denair Beach. She wants to see Bill 609, or the Saskatchewan Wildfire Strategy Act implemented, legislation proposed by the province's opposition that would require the Sask government to create a provincial wildfire strategy. Jordan McPhail, the NDP's critic for Northern Affairs, says that the findings need to be shared with the public, especially for those living up north.
So we're bringing a bill forward to make sure that those local voices are heard. That's the first and most important part of this. But the second part is that accountability piece.
When a wildfire tore through Clayton Siwap's northern community of Denair Beach in June, he stayed back to fight the flames. The former fire-base supervisor says he wants the bill to pass because something needs to change before next summer. Siwap quit his job, frustrated over promises the government made.
We got this. We got it under control. We have it. They didn't have nothing. Everything was lost.
The Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency says it does consult locals and experts in their wildfire decision-making, but that it's possible they need to talk to more people to make informed decisions. The SPSA says if improvements need to be made, it will come out of the third-party review of the province's wildfire response. Helena Mahalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The hunt for an aircraft that disappeared more than a decade ago is starting up again. The Malaysian government says it will carry out a 55-day search for flight MH370 beginning December 30th. The plane disappeared in 2014 en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing with 239 people on board. It veered off course less than an hour after takeoff and lost contact with air traffic control. The search was the largest in aviation history. An underwater exploration company will search a new 15,000 square kilometer site of the Indian Ocean. The White House is implementing a controversial immigration policy. U.S. President Donald Trump says he is pausing all immigration applications from 19 countries. These changes follow last week's shooting of 2 National Guard members. The CBC's Willie Lowry is on the story from Washington. And Willie, what more can you tell us about this new policy?
The list of countries being targeted includes Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, the Republic of the Congo, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and a host of others spread out across the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The administration has paused all immigration applications from these countries. That includes green cards and U.S. citizenship processing, a move that could affect people who have been in the U.S. for years. And it all comes after the arrest of an Afghan national accused of shooting 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. last week.
And Willie, Trump appears to be targeting Minnesota's large Somali community. Why?
That's right. So U.S. media reports suggest as many as 100 immigration and customs enforcement officers will soon be in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area looking for undocumented Somali immigrants. The operation comes after President Donald Trump unleashed a 3-minute diatribe against the community during a cabinet meeting yesterday.
Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Let them go back to where they came from.
Minneapolis officials, including Mayor Jacob Fry, say they stand by the community.
To our Somali community, we love you and we stand with you. That commitment is rock solid. Minneapolis is proud to be home to the largest Somali community in the entire country.
An estimated 84,000 people of Somali descent live in the state, most of whom are U.S. citizens.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Trailer Park Boys star Mike Smith is expected to enter a plea today on a sexual assault charge. The 53-year-old actor is best known for playing Bubbles on the show filmed in Nova Scotia. Smith was charged in early October in connection with an alleged sexual assault on a woman in December of 2017. CBC News has learned new exclusive details about the FBI's recent seizure of a rare Mercedes-Benz supercar. Investigators say the vehicle is linked to Canadian fugitive Ryan Wedding. It is estimated to be worth $13 million. Thomas Daigle has more.
Reaching a top speed of 335 kilometers an hour, the 2002 Mercedes CLK GTR Roadster really flies. With 2 seats and no roof, it's effectively a street-legal race car, and only 6 have ever been made.
Certainly authorities seizing cars is
nothing new, but I haven't heard of one this valuable. But
it's no wonder dealers of exotic cars like Tim Kwok's sister were taken aback when the FBI recently announced it had seized one of those Mercedes amid the hunt for alleged drug lord Ryan Wedding. FBI Director Kash Patel.
Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar.
Now, CBC News has obtained the purchase agreement for the car, signed last year by Roland Sokolovsky, a Toronto jeweler identified by investigators as one of Wedding's chief money launderers. Sokolovsky and a former Italian Special Forces member are said to have worked together to procure Wedding luxury vehicles, motorcycles, and properties around the world, all to hide the profits from his criminal empire. Jeff Simser is an expert in asset forfeiture.
So this guy runs what the U.S. have described as a $1 billion a year enterprise. And so he wants his toys.
Born in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Wedding is thought to be hiding in Mexico while still leading his cocaine smuggling network. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
And the story about that $13 million car with 2 seats and no roof is the most read story at cbcnews.ca. It's on our main page. That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Okay, that car going to be of no use in Manitoba, man. It is so cold this morning. You want a roof, believe me. Or you certainly want a ton of layers if you're walking out there. Minus 19. Today, our high is minus 16 in Winnipeg, and it feel like minus 29. And we're warmer than a lot of other places in the province. The weather in a moment. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on the Wednesday morning show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Our ongoing conversation about pedestrian safety continues this morning. We are going to take you down under. Very early this morning, we reached a guest in Australia. He's been a road safety specialist for 30 years. But not only has he studied what works and what doesn't when it comes to pedestrian safety there, he has helped New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States improve road safety. So stay tuned. We have a feature interview with this guest coming up this half hour on Information Radio here on CBC. First, though, to Josh Crabb for other developments in news. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. An organization, as you heard earlier in Information Radio, that helps single moms is desperate for donations of baby formula. Villa Rosa says a housing shortage means parents are having a difficult time finding a place to live, so they are staying longer and need more formula. This province is doubling the number of people who can train to become laboratory and X-ray technologists. This is part of a deal with Saskatchewan to train students there who agree to come back to Manitoba to help in rural and northern areas. And the fate of the Hudson's Bay Charter will be decided in virtual auction today, what it could mean for the historic document. Your next local CBC News is at 8:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Josh.
Thank you.
Now let's get into more forecast details, Abby.
Yeah, Marcy, it's a bone-chilling morning across the entire province. Folks, you know, that Arctic front really settling in already. We will see sunshine across the southern regions, but up north, we're talking about very, very low temperatures everywhere you go in the northern parts of the province this morning, with wind chills close to minus 40s and minus 41s. But in Winnipeg here, we are at minus 19, starting clear and frigid around, this minus 19 at the Forks. We're looking at a sunny day, cold one ahead, breezy northwest winds pushing the wind chill near minus 29 in the city this morning, though we will limit our high to about minus 16 later today. And across the southern regions, Brandon, Duff, and Gimli, we're looking at cold, clear, and sunny day temperatures between minus 18 and minus 24 at this time. Up north, we're dealing with wind chill, minus 41s to minus 43s.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you, Marcy.
Corey.
Yeah, so far, actually, it's been a very quiet commute over there. I haven't heard any calls on the commuter line, but if you're walking, you're biking, you see some slippery conditions out there that you want to let folks know about, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Well, up next on CBC, we've been talking a great deal about road safety, speed management, and keeping pedestrians safe, and quite frankly, for many years in our city of Winnipeg. And we have talked about it recently on the show because 9 pedestrians have been killed on Winnipeg roadways this year alone. Winnipeg Councillor Janice Luke says she believes we need to be more direct when it comes to making people better drivers.
We can put all this infrastructure we want to change the built environment on the road, but think about all our roads. Think about the amount of money this is going to cost. We have to address speed and distracted driving to the drivers. We can put all these tables and humps and bumps and whatever on the road. It's ridiculous. We need to do more enforcement. The police can't be everywhere. We need photo enforcement. We need to look at cities and countries around the world, New Zealand, Australia, how they are curbing driving behavior, how they are correcting it. Education campaigns and enforcement.
So let's turn to Australia to continue our conversation this morning and find out what Winnipeg can understand about what they've done to improve safety. Our next guest, Blair Turner, has been a road safety specialist for 30 years. He's worked on speed management change in Australia and New Zealand, but also in the UK and the United States. He's written books on the subjects as well. Blair Turner joins us via Zoom. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thanks, Marcy. Thanks for bringing me to the show.
Can we start with what we heard our city councillor say there, that she feels she's questioning infrastructure versus, tackling driver behavior. Does one supersede the other when you're thinking about improving road safety?
Look, they all play a role, really, and you can't do one without the other. So the approach that we take is this Vision Zero approach, which I know is strong in Canada as well. But that really tells us we need to take a systems approach, not just in one of these areas, but all of them combined. And that's how we'll get the best benefit. So we believe, yes, you need to educate drivers. We've been doing that for many years. But we need to support that with things like the infrastructure, like enforcement, and even some of the vehicle technologies we see now in some of the new vehicles as well. So it's not one, it's a mixture of all of them.
When things don't improve, why don't they improve? Like when campaigns fail, before we get to successes, why doesn't it work?
Yeah, there's been lots of things we've done over many years that haven't been as successful as we'd like. Sometimes it's poor execution. Sometimes it's just we haven't got the right resources to do things properly. So there are lots of reasons. There are some things we've tried which seem intuitively that they'll do make a big difference, but the reality is actually quite different. But, we've been doing this now for a few decades, and we've got quite a good catalogue of the interventions that we can use and actually how effective they are. So, let's draw on the evidence base and, take evidence-based solutions that actually have the big impacts.
I'm curious what you tried intuitively that you thought this will work that just didn't, especially because we have a long history here of trying a lot of things.
Yeah, so a classic example we'd use is for many years we tried to take younger drivers off the road and say into a car park area, and we'd teach them how to control in a skidding situation. So you make the road surface perhaps slippery, and then we'd train these young drivers on how to actually control themselves out of that skid situation. What we found with those people that had been trained, they now thought that they had these extra skills, and they actually drove differently in all circumstances, including they drove faster, which meant that their overall risk had increased. So, from something we thought would have a really good impact on safety outcomes, actually had a negative impact. So that's like a classic example, but there are several others as well.
That's so interesting. So let's get to what does work. What have you learned about ways to manage speed in your research that is effective?
Yeah, so look, we know across the world, this road safety issue is a massive crisis. It's the biggest cause of death amongst young people, and that's in all countries. So we've been working away to try and figure out what we can do that's of highest impact. And we know speed plays a major role in crashes. It influences the likelihood of a crash occurring. So, it takes a longer reaction distance to actually stop a car. But the other major factor here is that the severity in a crash is actually much, much greater when we're going faster. So that's why speed is such a big issue. And using that knowledge, what we're trying to do now is manage speeds to more appropriately survivable. So we know motorists will make mistakes. We try to train them, but people still are human and will make mistakes. So the idea amongst our Vision Zero safe system approach is that we put in place safe designs So even when people do make those minor mistakes on the road, that won't lead to a fatal or serious outcome. And so speed is really critical amongst the solutions we have. And that's really about, firstly, setting safe speed limits, backing those safe speed limits up, though, with the right signs, yes, traffic calming, but also enforcement technologies where we need to, and then the new technologies in vehicles. So we can even monitor the speeds of vehicles, especially fleet vehicles. And companies do this to make their drivers safer, to save themselves money actually around injuries and damaged goods. So that's another solution we can use to manage speeds as well. We know what to do. We know that it has a very, very strong impact. All the evaluations are very clear on this. We can effectively halve the number of deaths on our roads with good speed management, and even higher in some circumstances.
When you talk about enforcement, how much enforcement can create a change?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and the more the better generally, but we know from the work we do that a mixture of visible enforcement, so police actually out on the roads. We use speed cameras a lot in Australia and New Zealand. We find they're very effective. We also use in some places a mixture of highly visible cameras, but also hidden cameras. So this principle about anywhere, anytime, there's a chance that you may be caught if you're speeding. So please drive safely and carefully at all times. And it's not really seen as an extra tax on motorists. It really is, everyone's aware that this is enforcement that's out there. And you will pay a fine if you break the rules and cause extra risk to those people around you.
What about distracted driving? What have you seen or found actually gets drivers to put their phones away?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got some new technologies in the space now. So back to the enforcement, we have cameras now that can actually detect through the front windscreen if the driver is on their mobile phone or if they're not wearing a seatbelt. We've found that to be highly effective, and that's about enforcement, but it's also about engaging with the public and communities about the dangers. And some of these photos are just horrendous. People, talking on phones and just totally distracted, not wearing seatbelts, balancing children on their knee, etc. So these are actually quite powerful visuals to actually show to the public, to try and start these conversations about what we should be doing. And a lot of this makes intuitive sense anyway, but those visual images are really powerful. But certainly that enforcement's working really well. We have company policies as well about use of mobile phones in the workplace and using your vehicle as a workplace, and they can also be quite effective as well.
What should cities think about when setting speed limits in different parts of town?
Yeah, good question too. So, it's not all about slowing people down. We want to get people and goods moving quickly across our cities. Everyone wants to get to work in a short amount of time. So we try to design our cities to have some roads that are actually dedicated to moving people quickly, but where people live, where people shop, where people go to school, transport hubs, in these sorts of locations, we want to have slower speed environments at these locations. And the big picture here is that on those sorts of roads, we're only driving for a few hundred meters, for a few hundred feet, on those sorts of residential streets before we get to our main road. So, slowing people down on residential streets doesn't really have that big impact on journey times if we plan things properly and if we build safe infrastructure for those locations where we want traffic to go faster.
One of the things in this series that we talked about was, and one of the infrastructure aspects, was where roadways are naturally narrowed, and maybe they've been narrowed for cyclists. That we have an example in Winnipeg here through one of our roadways, well, a number of them, that vehicles naturally go slower because they have less space, so you just naturally slow down. You might be frustrated, but you're slowing down. Is that an effective way of slowing traffic, or is there another infrastructure build that is proven more effective?
Absolutely, yeah. So my background's actually in civil engineering and in psychology, so a lot of what I do is trying to design to take account of people's perceptions and the way they actually operate as road users. So there are certainly some things we can do to slow people down, and they'll basically use those cues without even realizing them. So that's things like narrowing the roads down, also putting in place the zigzags on the road, we call them chicanes at certain locations, but also using things like raised platforms and humps as traffic calming measures. but even things like the road surface texture as well. So you may have seen in Europe, and perhaps it's used in Canada as well, that if you've got sort of cobbled streets, it's noisier and rougher, and people drive slower in those locations as well. And that's not for everywhere. That's for those locations that are particularly dangerous, where there's perhaps lots of pedestrians, areas where we've got cyclists. In those locations, we want the traffic to go slower, and that's where we'd use those sorts of visual traffic calming devices.
I'm thinking about when you're on the highway here in Canada, you'll move to, if you veer out of your lane, you feel that bump, bump, bump underneath, and it naturally makes you go, whoa, I'm out of my lane. What is the most cost-effective way? Because you said at the beginning, one of the challenges for this can be also, what do you have to spend for your budget to improve your safety? It's a reality for cities, including ours. So when you think about infrastructure methods to build, what have you found has been most cost effective and also safety effective?
Look, I think many of the solutions in this, especially the speed and infrastructure space, are very, very cost effective. And to give you those sort of the numbers, for every $1 we'd spend, we'd expect benefits of between $5 and $10 return in terms of the crash reduction. So highly cost effective right across the board. But the most effective ones, the ones that I really like, and you mentioned the kind of outside cities, using signs and narrowing as you enter a town or a village or a city. Extra large size signs, a bit of paint on the road to narrow the road down. This just costs several $1,000s, but evaluations we've done in this part of the world show they bring quite massive reductions in, firstly, the speed, so better speed compliance, and then in terms of the crash reduction. So those sorts of interventions are highly effective. We can do a lot just with that paint and narrowing the roads down. Those bumps you mentioned, the audio tactile lines, we often use wide centre lines and those audio tactile lines together to narrow the lanes down on both urban roads, but also outside of our cities on those lower quality roads where we know people shouldn't be driving at the high speeds. We put in place a lower speed limit at those locations and support that through these sorts of lower cost measures. So they're all kind of the tools in our toolbox that we know about. And we do know how cost effective they are. We do know the benefits, and we do know where to use them, where not to use them.
What you're talking about here, I believe, is under what you call the Roads for Life framework. Is that right?
Yeah, so some of the work we've done in my previous role at the World Bank is we developed a framework on how to set speed limits for different road environments and different types, so urban areas and in rural areas as well. So this was a global guidance document. This issue is recognised right around the world, so we wanted to provide fairly general advice to all people involved in road safety, whether they're road agencies or whether they're trying to advocate for change. And so, yes, we did develop this Roads for Life framework. It has been picked up and used in a number of countries, and we're actually using that framework now in this part of the world, in Australia and New Zealand, to kind of reframe, I guess, our conversations around speed. And it's particularly around making sure that we use the right speeds for the right roads. So in urban areas where there's vulnerable road users, lower speeds. On rural roads that are low quality, lower speeds. So it's not all about making people go slow. That's, it's quite frustrating when we do that in some places. Often we want people to be travelling fast, but we need the right infrastructure in place to make that happen in a safe way.
Just last, because I found that example where you said what didn't work so interesting. Could you share one more before you go of something you thought this will work, and then it really didn't have the effect?
There are some, but it's quite complex. So I just need to simplify it. But there's some of the school-based programs we see. People are quite enthusiastic. They'll go in and do one, presentation to children to say, look, children, be safer. That's not enough. You can imagine young children, 7 or 8, leave the classroom and they'll kick a ball out onto the street and they'll completely forget that sort of training. So that alone isn't enough. We need to kind of combine all these different interventions together. Training is certainly part of our suite of tools. Similarly, some of our programs to communicate to the public, we tell people it's unsafe to drive fast. Well, we can tell people that all we like, but if you're in a hurry, if you're running late, you'll forget that message about that being perhaps dangerous. So we need to couple those messages with things like enforcement, with those infrastructure improvements, and with the vehicle-based technology. So I guess the main thing is don't use these things in isolation, use them in combination, because that's how we know they're most effective.
Thank you for the conversation today.
Great. Thank you for the time. Thanks very much.
That's Blair Turner. He is an Australian road safety specialist and one of the authors of Facilitating Speed Management Change, example case studies from Australia and New Zealand. He was speaking with CBC's Marcy Marcusa earlier today.
This winter, help make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. All it takes is one can of food, $1, or even 1 hour of your time. Your generosity will help those in need and bring us closer together as Manitobans. Join us as we donate a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba December 5th. Visit cbc.ca/kindmb for more.
That's just a couple days away, and we are working on confirming a few wonderful local musicians that are going to be playing on the airwaves all day in support of Harvest Manitoba. We'll also be sharing lots of stories about how Harvest is helping address hunger here in Manitoba. Well, minus 18 right now at the Forks. We're approaching plug-in-your-car territory. It's only going to warm up to minus 16 today here in Winnipeg. Still plenty of great local programming coming up later today. On Radio Noon, the call-in is all about holiday scams and porch pirates. We want people to call in with their stories. Maybe you took part in Cyber Monday and maybe something you bought wasn't actually real. Maybe it was a scam and you want to share your story. Maybe you're doing something to help prevent being scammed that you want to share with folks. What's your best practices? Share your stories, share your ideas. Tune in after 12:30. We're opening up the phone lines on Radio Noon. You're listening to Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, hosting really the last couple minutes here of Information Radio for Marcy Marcusa. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's mainly clear and minus 18, clear and minus 22 in Brandon, minus 25 in Flin Flon. This province is doubling the number of people who can train to become laboratory and X-ray technologists. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says there is a demand in rural and northern communities. They say the province has secured more seats with Saskatchewan Polytechnic, which provides the training.
So we had 5 seats previously. We've added an additional 5 seats through our partnership with them, bringing our total up to 10 seats. So we'll have 10 seats that can be filled as of January. I'm happy to share that actually we have more applicants already for those 5 additional seats than the seats allow.
Asseguera says Shared Health will offer return of service agreements to those Manitoba students, which will require them to work in this province for at least 3 years. The agreement with Saskatchewan, meantime, is to bridge the training gap in the province. Assiniboine College is expected to launch its own program with 20 seats in 2027. The chief of a Cree Nation in northern Manitoba is calling on the province to cancel the December moose hunt across its traditional territory. Mississippiwistic Cree Nation, about 400 kilometers north of Winnipeg, says Manitoba is disregarding its food needs and treaty rights. After licenses were issued for most of the moose the province estimated could be sustainably harvested in the area, the hunt opened Monday. Mississippiwistic Chief Heidi Cook said in a letter to the Natural Resources Minister, the nation has a firm expectation the province will cancel the hunt.
What we want is better moose management so that we can continue to have moose. Right now, our moose are being hunted to the point where the populations are going to collapse if nothing changes.
The minister in charge, Ian Bushy, says Manitoba is committed to ensuring people can hunt while also protecting moose populations. Bushy says the province will meet with Mississippiwistic to support fair and safe access to hunting areas. For more on this story, you can head to cbc.ca/Manitoba. An organization that helps single moms is desperate for donations of baby formula. Villa Rosa helps house young parents through pregnancy and the first few months after the baby is born. Executive Director Carolyn Eva says donations are down because infant formula is so expensive. She says it's been a struggle because they have a lot of babies.
Right now we have a record number of babies. We have 14 babies. Mostly under 2 or 3 months, and breastfeeding doesn't work for everyone. So we do provide formula for the first couple of months.
Eva says the housing shortage means parents are having a difficult time finding a place to live, so they are staying at Villa Rosa longer. It is welcoming donations of powdered and especially ready-to-feed infant formula at its Wolseley Avenue location. The fate of a foundational piece of Manitoba's and Canada's history will be decided in virtual auction today. The royal charter that formed the Hudson's Bay Company some 355 years ago is going under the hammer. It was signed by King Charles II and gave the company rights to all of Manitoba, as well as large parts of Saskatchewan, Alberta, Nunavut, and Northern Ontario and Quebec. A source tells CBC the only bidders are the wealthy Thompson and Weston families, who announced a joint $18 million bid last month. Cody Grote is an associate professor of Indigenous Studies at Western University. He says the HBC Charter helped lay the foundation for the colonial exploitation of Indigenous peoples.
This document is highly contentious, highly controversial, because it did set the stage, or was based on this idea that Indigenous nations didn't have a legitimate claim to our territories.
Grote says having wealthy families put up the money is a positive in the end because they've agreed to irrevocably donate it to 4 public institutions, including the Manitoba Museum and Archives of Manitoba. A court is expected to approve the sale December 11th. And finally, Winnipeg is taking the number of carvings in Bois d'Esprit down a notch. Parks officials say there are too many etchings in the St. Vital forest. Prospective carvers now need prior approval. Carvings are not allowed on live trees, and only images of nature or forests are allowed. Parks manager Dave Domke says he hopes carvers will comply with the new rules.
We don't have a carving police, but what we do have is a lot of eyes out there in the community that can let us know what's happening in the community.
Text, symbols, and plaques are also not allowed on trees, but the city won't take down existing carvings that don't comply with the new rules. And that is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 9 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you.
That is Josh Crabb at our CBC News Desk. I'm Corey Funk, and a big thank you to everyone who helped put together today's show. Zubina Ahmed, Sierra Sanders, Jenna Badasso, they are our associate producers. Josh Crabb, of course, Megan Ketchison, and Joni Nicolo are our news team. Marcy Marcusa, the host, and as well as our on-air team is Abby Adiemi, Sofia Peralta Baron, and Darren Morash. And a big thank you as well to Nelly Gonzalez, our show producer, and Leif Larson, our senior producer of audio. I'm Corey Funk, and usually I'm keeping an eye on the traffic and just hosting these last couple minutes of InfoRad for you today. As for the traffic, it's been very quiet overall. No major issues out there. But Abby, what's going on in the weather?
Yeah, it's bitterly cold across the province, though we'll see some sunshine across the south, while that intense wind chills still continues in the northern part of the province. So frostbite is a big concern up there. We're talking about wind chills in the values of minus 42. For the southern part of the province, we're looking at temperatures between minus 18 and minus 24. Right now, lots of sunshine on its way. We warm up to 20s. We warm up to minus 16 later, but the wind chill feels like minus 29 outside. Winnipeg, we are at around minus 18, minus 19.
Minus 8, though, is the high tomorrow at least. So at least it'll feel tropical in comparison. A little bit of snow, too. Some more wintry, Christmassy vibes coming our way tomorrow. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is CBC Radio 1. Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM. I'm Corey Funk. The Current is next.